Ayy, look, yeah, ayy. I'm in the lab like Dexter, brand new batch he tested. I'm with all the extras, don't try and bitch, I'm pressure. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the New Media Podcast. I'm your host, Ya. We hope you enjoyed the last episode because, as always, today's going to be an even better episode. I got the whole crew with me, but of course, playoff starting, we had to add a special guest to this episode. It's been a while. It's been a while since we had a special guest, but it's a familiar face, though. So, of course, we had to bring in the hand of the bandit, the legendary bandit. You know what I'm saying? We had to bring him on the podcast to talk about some playoff hoops, to talk about his team and stuff like that. So, the topics that we got on display for today, we're going to be giving our we're going to give our playoff predictions for the first round. We're going to discuss the play-in tournament that just happened. Then we're going to talk about what players have the most to gain from winning a championship during this postseason, what coaches are under the most pressure to deliver a championship for their franchise. And then we'll end off with the news coming out of Baltimore, Odell Beckham Jr. signing for that 1 year, $18 million deal. But of course, temperature check. How's everybody doing today, man?
Man, it's playoff basketball time. I'm excited. Let's get it.
Hey man, great playing so far. It was fantastic. My Lakers made it out, but a couple good games in the play, man. I'm very interested for the playoffs. The real playoffs to start. So let's get it cracking.
Yes, sir, man. I'm just excited to be here. As far as the Heat, though, I don't want to do much talking about them. Offense is mediocre to say the least. But as far as the playoffs, I'm excited to talk about that and get in depth to see what we're talking about. Let's go into the topics.
Last time we brought you on here, man, you're in a Vegas Raiders locker room. Now you're in a Miami Heat locker room, man. What a change of scenery for you.
Yeah, I had to go on vacation,
It was a good week that y'all brought him on, bro. Josh Jacobs had 300 yards against my Seahawks, man. I was pissed. Like, come on. But, hey, we don't got to face the Heat in the playoffs, so there ain't no issue.
I mean, there's no positives for the Heat season to even talk about, so let's tell you. Yeah.
Hey, man, speaking of the Miami Heat, I say we jump right into it. With the first things first, we'll talk about the play-in tournament. In the very first game that kicked off the play-in tournament, we had the Atlanta Hawks go up against the Miami Heat. And the Atlanta Hawks were able to come out victorious in this game, winning the game 116 to 105.
I mean, like this game, my predictions when we were talking about this game in our preview, I had us winning this game, the Miami Heat, simply because I felt like the defense on Trae Young, just personnel wise and how we're able to switch everything would have given him a problem. And Trae Young didn't necessarily kill us per se. Like, he had a 25-point game. He had pretty good. He was efficient. He made the right plays, but it was the glass that just we got absolutely mauled on. I mean, when you talk about Okongwu, Capella, Jalen Johnson, Sadiq Bey, every single person that was able to get on the glass just punished Miami Heat. And that's, again, back to poor roster construction. I mean, you have Bam out there with Caleb Martin, Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero. Like, who's going to grab a single rebound? It's not going to happen. There's times where there's lineups where it's Hero, Lowry, Butler, Caleb Martin, and Bam. That's literally a lineup full of guys that are all 6'5" and 1 6'9" guy, of course. And plus, with the Miami Heat scheme, you're going to have Bam switching out constantly onto guys. And so what can Bam do? Is he able to gonna guard out on the perimeter? Is he gonna really stay inside? Like, what position is Bam gonna be put in for them to have success in that type of game? And so offensively, I mean, Jimmy Butler is missing a bunch of gimmies, stuff that he normally makes. Bam was missing easy shots that, since the All-Star break, I don't know what happened to his offensive game. Is just taking a nosedive. And the Atlanta Hawks, they took advantage of that. Just punished us on the glass, and it sucks, but we're able to pull one out the next game, which we'll get to. But that was a tough loss.
Yeah, to piggyback on basically what you were saying, that game is just hilarious due to the fact that we're never gonna see another Lowry game like that ever again. Like, that guy put his all in that game, and for us not to deliver is a bit like, it's heartbreaking. To see him drop 30 was insane. He was shooting the lights out. Tyler had a decent game. I mean, it wasn't like a wow, like he's going crazy, but he played his part. And then I know Bam gets a lot of flack, but you got to think about it. If you're switching to the guard, who's gonna get the board? Max Strus at the 4. Like, obviously, like, we're gonna get into the game where he had an amazing game, but like, that's gonna be daunting once we play the Bucks, which that's obviously gonna, like, we're playing Brook and Giannis and all that. And then as far as that game, Jimmy, he was struggling a bit. He didn't the thing I hate that he didn't do, like he didn't try to like shoot the ball outside of the perimeter. He kept on trying to drive in on Capella. I feel like he should have tried to space it out, try to shoot a bit, try to get something that wasn't provided for us that game, but it was a disappointing game nonetheless.
I mean, yeah, y'all hit it on point, man. For me, it was, the key points of the game was a lot of, 63 rebounds for the Atlanta Hawks, 39 for Miami Heat, 53 bench points for the Hawks, and to 37 for the Heat. And 33 of those points came from Kyle Lowry. Nobody else contributed from the bench or anything like that. And like Henry said, man, it's crazy to see Lowry go off like this, and he didn't have no other help coming in. So, I mean, they just got out rebound. The second chance points, the third opportunities off the rebounds, like it's crazy. And Butler 6 for 19. He didn't do much. He wasn't aggressive. He wasn't hitting his jump shots. Bam, he had an okay game, but it's tough when you're going with an all 6 for 6 lineup, putting Bam at center. You have nobody else to help rebound, and it's for that you're getting jumped by John Collins. You're getting jumped by Capella. You're getting jumped by Kanye. There's multiple guys off the bench. Jalen Johnson, Sadiq Bey, like the size DeAndre Hunter, the size these guys are coming with off the bench in the starting lineup was, they out physical the Miami Heat starting lineup. So key points, it was the rebounding, star players not, going in offensively, but Tyler Hero and the bench scoring. I feel like Atlanta, they really won this game for the four players that came off the bench. They all cooked up. 53 points from four of them. They were pretty, fantastic. They were hitting threes, and the rebounding, you could say it was great for them off the bench. So ATL had a good win in this one. They stepped out. They came out and balled. Trae Young, 8 for 18. Not too efficient, but 25, 7, and 8. He came up in other areas. So it was a good game by the Hawks. And then we'll speak about Miami that second game. So we'll get to that.
I mean, yeah, the rebounding battle, something I obviously I noticed it while watching, but when you look at the numbers, 63 to 39, uh, god damn, Miami Heat got beat on the glass heavy. But I want to speak about the Atlanta Hawks, man, because obviously, I mean, we all had the Miami Heat winning, and the one reason I had them winning was simply because of the edge by having a guy like Jimmy Butler, who is a postseason performer. But this game he didn't show up. It was the likes of Trae Young, the likes of DeJounte Murray, and their bench that really stepped it up. And I feel like the Atlanta Hawks did a great job at kind of running an offense where it's sometimes Trae Young controls the game, and sometimes DeJounte Murray controls the game. They didn't have that last year. I pointed that out in our predictions episode where it was besides Trae Young last year, pretty much nobody could put the ball on the floor and kind of create the offense for the rest of the guys that are out there. So DeJounte, he played his part. He struggled a little bit in the first half, but I feel like he had timely shots in the fourth quarter, and he was able to control the game alongside Trae Young in this one. So all the credit in the world to the Atlanta Hawks. Losing PJ Tucker would hurt for this Miami Heat team simply because it's tough when you don't have a guy that could be overly aggressive on Trae Young and get away with it in the postseason. But Gabe Vincent and Max Strus, Caleb Martin, they try to do the best they can, but the best they could, but it just wasn't enough in this game. And obviously we'll speak about the Miami Heat and what they did in the next game, but just wasn't. It's just when you think about the outlook for the Miami Heat and for the postseason since they've clinched, it's just not something that you can necessarily look at in a great light, because obviously they have a lot of problems with this roster construction as we mentioned, and so it's just going to be interesting to see how they try to patch up all these holes that they got. But overall, very very good win for the Atlanta Hawks. Clinching the playoff spot, clinching that 7th seed. With a very very tough matchup with the Boston Celtics, which we'll get to in our next topic and next segment. But let's go ahead and move on to the second game of the night. We had the Minnesota Timberwolves go on the road and play the Los Angeles Lakers. This game, the Lakers won 108-102 in overtime. I got to say, this game was a little interesting.
First half, like, Karl Anthony Towns, man. Like, I was like, this guy is absolutely hooping. And, there's a lot of key points in that first half. It just felt like a very lethargic effort from the Lakers side. It felt like the Minnesota Timberwolves wanted it more. And even up until like the third quarter and the beginning of the fourth, it felt like Minnesota was exerting themselves offensively. Whenever they had the lineups of Slow-Mo and Cat out there, they were absolutely punishing the Lakers. I felt like Karl Anthony Towns doing a phenomenal job. And then fourth quarter is where the Lakers really, really tightened up. And, it's a fourth quarter. Everybody felt like it was one of the worst displays of basketball they've ever seen in a while. I mean, you just had terrible, terrible decisions all across the board from, even shocking. You even saw from a guy like LeBron James, he was making some questionable decisions when he was shooting a lot of jump shots, driving in at random times, trying to force the issue. But it felt like the Lakers, after the Wolves hit about 95 points, that they really tightened up on defense. They were switching about everything. Anthony Edwards had a terrible, terrible, terrible game. I mean, just from the aspect of not just shooting, but there's times where this guy was just holding up the possession, trying to get it to Cat, and then he would just hold it, and then they would just force the issue, and they would never get a good shot. So, Lakers defense did a great job switching everything. They really tightened up on Cat, and I think from basically midway through the fourth quarter all the way to overtime, Cat barely scored anything, if anything.
Start of the fourth quarter to OT, they only made 5 shots in total.
Yeah, so they struggled really badly, and I think that's a good sign for the Lakers in terms of their defense. But the Grizzlies are a whole different outlook, so that's definitely something that we're gonna get to. So,
I mean, for that game in particular, the one person you got to credit for this game, he gets a lot of flack in Laker Nation. People want to send him to China, but he hooped that game. I'm gonna give it to Dennis Schroeder, man. He kind of hooped, like, remember when he was like 6th man of the year contention with the Thunder? He brought the time back that game. He really was on it. D'Angelo Russell, I gotta see it in the playoffs. He kind of looks a bit underwhelming since the acquisition of like getting him to the Lakers. He got to show me something. He's on watch for me. But other than that, like, I think you guys hit the nail on the noggin. This is like, honestly, Anthony Edwards like first like down in the middle game. So he definitely, like, he got a lot of flack for that, but obviously, like, he's gonna pick up in the playoffs. But other than that, you got to give a shout out to Dennis Schroeder on this one.
Man, I'm part of the Laker Nation that hates Dennis Schroeder. Every time he touches the court, every time I see him and Ham hugging on the sideline, him just coming into the game, 23 seconds to the shot clock, just throwing up nasty shots. It annoys me, So for him to come into that second half and, take over D'Lo's minutes and show up for us big time, especially in the fourth and OT, I'm gonna clap it up for him, you know what I'm saying? And to speak about the first half, these guys shot 60% from 3, 60% from the field. Cat was hot, Slow-Mo was hot. Even Mike Conley was hitting threes, Jalen Noel was hitting threes, Nicole Alexander was hitting a bunch of shots in the first half. These guys were just firing on all cylinders. And Lakers, it took time for them to, get set, relax. And, we came into that fourth quarter, we played some clamp defense. Play some clamp defense. We forced them to only make 5 shots in the fourth, and in the OT, they only took 2 shots in the paint in the OT. And these guys were complaining about, why can't the Minnesota Timberwolves get fouls? I mean, if you're not playing aggressive and not attacking the paint, you're only having 2 attempts in the paint in the whole fourth quarter, you're not going to get free throws. So for us, majority of our shots were coming in the paint. Especially that just being physical, Dennis Schroeder attacking the rim, finding his buckets. And then that big 3. LeBron James finding him in the corner. It happens, but at the same time, I want to speak about the inconsistency of Anthony Davis and the mistakes he makes on the defensive side of the ball sometimes. Like contesting, we've seen this before. I forgot what the first guy he did this with. What's his name? Top of the key when he kind of fouled him on the 3-point line.
Maxi Kleber.
There we go, that Dallas game, Maxi Kleber, him being lost. And, this time it was LeBron and AD. They get doubled. They set a screen. Mike Conley gets open, and these 2 guys are lost. They don't know where they at. LeBron's in nowhere, la-la land, and AD's back in the paint like, what am I doing? That leaves Mike Conley open in the 3. So for them, they got to be better on the defensive side of the ball in situations like that. The game could have been over. And then speaking about OT with the LeBron turnover and passing it in, giving him another opportunity with who missed the 3 in the corner again?
Taurean Prince.
Taurean Prince. He had a wide open 3, and that came off a LeBron turnover on the inbound pass. That stuff like that we can't have happen in a 7-game series. If we go down the line against the Warriors or the Suns or the Nuggets, even a team like the Grizzlies as well, we cannot make those mistakes. So, I was happy that we fought back. Dennis Schroeder came in, and he solidified his spot. He made some big shots for us. And I want to speak about the Minnesota Big 3 as well. Not Minnesota Big 3, but the 3 guys that we got from Minnesota: Vanderbilt, D'Lo, and Malik Beasley. Those guys did not contribute whatsoever to whatever they came to do in this playing game. Not whatever. Like, we benched D'Lo second half. We put Vanderbilt out in the game second half, and Malik Beasley had 1 shot. Other than that, those guys were jumping up and down talking about, hey, revenge game. We left Minnesota. We're gonna cook him. Nah, y'all got to come back next series. Y'all got to, perform. Y'all got to keep quiet. Y'all got to shut up. This is like the first go around for y'all, on a big team. You guys are going to be under a microscope. It's the Laker Nation. Y'all playing with LeBron. So all this hooting and hollering they were doing before the game, I don't want to hear that no more. But shout out my Lakers.
That is crazy big market talk, by the way, guys. I just got to point that out.
It's funny because, like, I remember it was Malik Beasley who hit a shot. He started dancing
You seen him dancing with the top of the three key, and it was like halfway through the game.
Twerking.
We hear twerking and digging on the court. Like, what are you doing?
I mean, you would think like he was like on fire, but like that was the only three he made the entire night. And to speak about all three of those guys, to piggyback off what you said, Big H, those three guys all had a combined 7 points, man. So that's a great revenge game for them. But to speak about this game specifically, I just feel like the obviously the Minnesota Timberwolves were shooting the lights out of the ball in the first half. So I feel like obviously the way they were shooting just wasn't sustainable as a carryover. And of course, credit to the Lakers defense in the fourth quarter and overtime for clamping up. But the officials played a huge part in this game, whether you guys want to believe it or not. Karl Anthony Towns already being down 2 key guys. You're already down Rudy Gobert. You're down Jaden McDaniels. Karl Anthony Towns being in foul trouble for majority of the game. Like, come on, man. Who are these guys supposed to resort to? They're already down Naz Reid as well for the rest of the season. So it's like,
tell him stop slapping. Tell him start moving with his legs. He
not,
can't play no defense. He cannot play no defense. That. He couldn't move.
That's the thing, though. When it comes to the Lakers, man, the whistle is a generational whistle, man.
You always complain about the whistle when we win. Every time, that's your excuse.
I mean, the free throw margin for the Lakers in comparison to this league is crazy, though.
Whistle. Tell them guys go play physical in the paint so they can get the whistle too.
A lot of guys were. I'll give Karl Anthony Towns at least 3 of those fouls, but there's just no way this guy walked away with all 5 fouls, bro, and especially in a playing game where it's kind of like, the setting is high stakes basketball, which is something you want to see. You don't necessarily want to see the opposing team's best player in foul trouble for majority of the game. But obviously it is what it is. It took him out of his rhythm and it was in favor of the Los Angeles Lakers and it worked in their favor. But I do want to speak about Anthony Edwards, man. I know he had a bad game and it's okay for him to have his bad game. I'm not going to bash him too hard, but I just didn't appreciate or I didn't like the fact that he stopped being aggressive. Obviously he wasn't shooting, with lights out from in the field and stuff like that. And he wasn't, getting to the basket and making layups and stuff. But just for him to just, sit back and kind of let Kyle Anderson and everybody else on the floor do their thing and just kind of be a decoy just didn't sit right with me. Because I've seen this before against the Golden State Warriors where the Warriors took him out of the game completely, and this guy was just passing the ball to Conley, passing the ball to Kyle Anderson, and just sitting in the corner, just letting those guys go to work. And obviously the Warriors were able to win that game. I just feel like even though Anthony Edwards wasn't having a great night, you still got to be aggressive. You still got to put pressure at the rim. You still got to put pressure on the defense to open up the game for all the guys that are doing pretty well from themselves. So I just feel like, it's something that he can obviously learn from. I believe Anthony Edwards is a dog in this league, but credit to the Lakers, man. They really clamped up. LeBron and AD came to play, 30 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists. AD 24 and 15. Another day in the office for him. Schroeder really stepped it up on the bench. Of course, my guy AD ruined his game winner, but at the end of the day, the Lakers are able to come out victorious in this one, 108 to 102. And they're able to clinch a spot and a date with the Memphis Grizzlies, man. It's not going to be an easy series, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Let's go ahead and move back to the Eastern Conference. My Chicago Bulls went into Toronto and beat the Raptors 109 to 105. Zach LaVine, man, I gotta say he stepped up in this one.
Now this one, I mean, the first half, it was really just Kobe White doing a lot of the damage for the Raptors. I mean, I felt like he was a big reason why they were still in the game with this one, but the Raptors were just doing an absolute phenomenal job in terms of guarding the stars. I mean, Zach LaVine was quiet in that first half. DeMar DeRozan was starting to get to his spots, but it felt like the Raptors had total control of this game. They're up by 23 at one point. Fred VanVleet was hitting shots. Siakam was getting to his spots. He was scoring. Scottie Barnes was contributing. Jakob Poeltl was making good passes out of the high post. I mean, everybody was getting touches. It was good basketball. And then third quarter, Zach LaVine remembered he's an all-star shooting guard. I mean, this towards the end of the third quarter, this guy just put on a clinic, shot after shot, getting to the basket. And I feel like that's the essence of his game, just being a lot more aggressive, trying to get to the basket, drawing fouls, hitting shots. And, I feel like that gave the Bulls some sort of energy, a surge of energy. And then, DeMar started hitting shots. And in the fourth quarter, it was almost my turn, you-turn basketball. DeMar would go and attack, and Zach LaVine would go and attack. I mean, he had that one shot where he bumped Scottie Barnes, hit a step back right in his face. I mean, that's just Zach LaVine for you. He always has that potential to just turn it up. And so the Raptors, their offense completely crumbled. And then it's just the biggest story of this game, I think everybody already knows, is DeMar DeRozan's daughter. I mean, when I first heard it, I was just like, what the hell's going on? and I didn't think it had an effect. And then these guys were starting to really brick free throws. I mean, the icing on the cake for them was Siakam breaking those free throws. I mean, that was his chance to stay in the game and give him a chance to win it. And Siakam just bricked them. And so, I mean, it's tough. His game check, DeMar DeRozan's game check definitely needs to go to his daughter. I mean, she did a great job for them, but we saw what happened in the next game in Miami. We'll get to that, but they did a phenomenal job. So
Yeah, man. The name of the game was the free throws. As professional athletes, NBA players at that, you got to make your free throws. They went like 18 to 36 in free throws. That's a disgusting display of basketball. I think the outlook for the Raptors is actually interesting too. I think Nick Nurse is gone. Like at this point, he's out of there. I want to see OG shipped out for his own right because I feel like he can flourish somewhere else. Siakam, I have no clue. He's spinning somewhere. And then Fred VanVleet, I have no clue about him too. He could stay there too, but I just want OG to leave. Other than that, Zach LaVine, he balled out. What, like 40 points? He had around there, I think. He had 40. Uh, DeMar DeRozan, he had like a decent game, nothing too crazy, but they turned it up in the second half, man. Salute to them.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. I feel like what Henna said. I feel like this team is ready to blow up, but at the same time, I feel like they overpriced a couple players now. And now teams are gonna be like, hey, we know what type of basketball you guys play. It's dysfunctional in the locker room. Even Van Fleet came out. He was like, these, like we don't want it. It's the type of we don't communicate on the team. It's a lot of stuff going on in that locker room. And I feel like they outpriced themselves with saying, hey, we want 4 picks for OG, or we want 3 picks for Gary Trent, or we want 4 picks for what's his face, Siakam. And it's like you're asking prices like these guys, you're pairing them up with Jokic type pricing, KD type pricing. Like they're not superstars to me. They're OG's not a superstar. Scotty Barnes not a superstar. Fred VanVleet. Me and Abby always go over this. I don't think he's a good player. I don't know. I never thought he was a good player. He played a great role on that finals team, but to me, offensively, the second half they just stunk it up, and that always starts off with free throws, man. Guys getting paid 80 million, 90 million, $100 million just to miss free throws, kind of embarrassing. They could have sealed the game off if they made 10 or 12 more free throws, man. Chicago second half they came in and Levine took over, and defensively they locked in. And this is reason I picked them. I was like, I really thought defensively the whole game they're going to be locked in. And second half they came up and showed. Levine came up, showed second half. Shout out to DeMar DeRozan. He came in, played like Debo that second half. His daughter was right there next to him, helping a lot. So Chicago, man, they came in and second half after that halftime down, what was it, 17 or 18? Yeah, they hit a click after that, midway through third quarter. So it was fantastic to see that. But there's a lot to go with Toronto, man. Nick Nurse is probably going to fill some other offers with other teams. I feel like OG's going to leave, Fred's going to leave, and Siakam's probably going to find a new home. And Toronto's little run that they had the last 5 years is disappearing. Kawhi blessed them with a ring. Now they're about to go back to nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I liked how this game went for my Bulls, man. I said it in our predictions episode. I had a feeling that the Toronto Raptors were going to have a long and hard night trying to stop my backcourt and Levine and DeRozan, man. And I feel like when those guys have it going, it's tough. It's tough to stop because it opens up the game for a lot of the other guys like Kobe White, guys like Vucevic, to just do their thing. And that's exactly what went down. But it was mostly on the backs of Levine and DeRozan in this one, especially in that third quarter for Levine, and then in the fourth, it was a dynamic duo that really just took over. DeRozan going back to a place he's very, very familiar with. A lot of those shots, he was struggling with, through the season, but he did get, nominated as a finalist for being one of the most clutch players in the league just recently. So, it's not a surprise that he was able to hit shots down the stretch, but. Man, this is like a tale of two halves, though, man. You watch the Toronto Raptors in the first half, and these guys look like they're ready to make the playoffs and ready to play another game on Friday and clinch a spot. But once again, these guys just showed what type of team they've been all season long. Through the good, through the bad, and pretty much first half everything was going well for them. They capped off that first half with the Fred VanVleet half-court shot. Things are going great in the locker room at halftime. Next thing you know, these guys come out. And once the game's over, these guys lose. So it's going to be a lot of, soul searching and roster revamping that the Toronto Raptors need to do. But just be prepared to see a lot of guys in different spots on this team. Guys like Siakam, Fred VanVleet, and OG and Gary Trent will probably all be gone. Maybe even Poto will be gone. So I think they'll try to just rebuild around Scotty Barnes and try to build this thing up from scratch the correct way. Because Obviously, these guys won a championship and wanted to kind of just build off that while still losing the guy that helped them win the championship. But it hasn't been working out these last couple of years, so they might have to go back to the drawing board with this one. But this was a very, very good one for my Bulls. And now we'll go ahead and move on to the final playing game of this night. Between 9 and 10 seed, we had the Oklahoma City Thunder going to New Orleans and beat the Pelicans 123 to 118.
This was, I mean, Adam Silver, man. The script that he has for the playing games is just phenomenal, man. Like every single playing game to me is just, there's always high stakes. It's good basketball to watch, but OKC, they came into this game. I think a lot of people had the Pelicans winning this, and in our predictions, I did have the Pelicans winning this just because of the sheer size that Valanciunas has, and what he would be doing to this team. And early on in the game, even throughout the rest of the game, he was causing problems for OKC. I mean, just on the glass, it just felt like there was no size, and that's something that's key for OKC is that they generally just don't have size at the center position. They start Jalen Williams, who's 6'9". He's not a rim protector. He's mostly a guy that just takes charges and spaces the floor. So, a lack of rim protection. And I mean, Lou Dort was just phenomenal to start this game and throughout the rest of the game, but especially in the first half. I mean, this guy was just putting pressure on the Pelicans. Even when Brandon Ingram would hit a shot, this guy would come right back and get to the basket, draw free throws. Shea didn't have a good first half, but Gideon and Lou Dort, I mean, they made it a point to be aggressive and get to the basket and score. And they did a great job of keeping OKC into this game. And third quarter, that's where the stars show up, and it was big for Shea in this third quarter. I mean, to have Herb Jones on him, and he was just getting to the basket, hitting his shots, just hitting crazy layups, and then defensively, he was just doing a phenomenal job. But Lou Dort is someone that I think was the MVP of this game. I mean, just his sheer defense on Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram did have a good game, but you guys saw the way Lou Dort was just going around screen after screen, giving him problems, forcing Brandon Ingram to have to take mismatches to be able to score against the OKC. But Lou Dort did a phenomenal job, and Gideon and Shea, they basically closed it out for this team. And the Pelicans, Brandon Ingram had a great game, but this guy CJ McCollum, there needs to be a discussion about this guy and his play style and how good he really is. I mean, this last year, we saw how bad he was in the final play-in games. We saw how he was in the first round series against the Suns. I mean, this guy, he's been a playoff dropper for a while now. If he never had that series against the Nuggets, I just wonder what CJ McCollum would look like, and how people would view him, because for him to send subtle shots against Zion just doesn't sit right with me at all. And I know there's a lot of criticisms against Zion, but for him, of all people, to talk about Zion and talk about, we need to diet better, we need to eat healthier, sleep better, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you did all those things and you're still trash. So what did you gain? Availability is the best ability, but with him, there was no ability against OKC. I mean, if CJ McCollum had remotely played any better against OKC, they would have won this game. If he didn't let Brandon Ingram die out there, they would have had a better chance. So he's the last person to talk about Zion. And if I'm Zion, I'm sitting there like, why is this dude talking about me? If Brandon Ingram said that, that's one thing. But if this guy's talking about that just don't sit right with me, man, at all. So
yeah, nah, CJ McCollum sucks.
Straight up like that, huh?
Yeah, I don't know what to put it, man.
Get to the point.
Like, what is he good at? Like, I guess he was like a mid-range specialist back in what's it called with the Blazers, but now he's just like, I don't know, he's like lethargic, like he's just terrible. Whenever he's on the court, it just makes me mad. There was one play where he went for a floater, it just bricked off, and I just I turned off my television. I was mad seeing him out there. But Trey Murphy, he had a good shoot performance. I can't lie, I'll give it to him. And the Valanciunas, I think he like twisted his ankle, so like losing him a little bit kind of hurt them towards the end. They had to play Jackson Hayes. He's like has 2 left feet. So there's a lot of like glaring stuff that they were missing. And then obviously like missing Zion is a big piece as well. But back to the Thunder, man, that future is bright down in OKC. I ain't gonna lie. The sun is shining over there. Lou Dort, they challenged him to shoot the ball. He shot the ball well that game. Salute to him. Josh Giddey, out there dishing the diamond, man. Shout out my guy, man. And then, Shea, he did his thing in the third. So it was a good showing for the OKC Thunder, man.
Man, shout out OKC, man. They came in, prepared to play against these guys, and all the games, like I said during the season series, a bunch of the games were 3-point games, 2-point games, 4-point games. So every game was close. But to see Giddey, to see Lou Dort, to see Shai, all pull through for the team, They were taking turns on CJ, man. CJ, we gonna speak about CJ. You feel me? He was taking shots at Portland for not making the playoffs or anything. Like he actually made the playoffs. The guy was in the play-in. And he said, "Yeah, Portland didn't make the playoffs. I'm in the playoffs. You're not in the playoffs, buddy. You're in the play-ins. You did not show up. You played 42 minutes. You shot 5 for 15, 1 for 5 from 3, and dished out like 2 assists. Only had 14 points. And for him to take shots at Zion, saying, "Hey, fix up your diet. If you're healthy, you got to play." Bro, you were on the court for 42 minutes and you didn't contribute to nothing. You did as much as Zion did on the bench. As much as he did playing 0 minutes, you did the same. So for him to come out, to say he's a big playoff factor. He can factor in winning games. He has not contributed in any other series but the Nugget series that he had a couple years ago. And every other series that he's played in, he's been shit. So, CJ, a lot of people think this guy's a good player, and a lot of people say, hey, he's this and that. I never rated CJ, and now him taking shots at Zion, an injured player that's sitting on the bench trying to get healthy, has been through a lot with, his injury history and a lot going on probably in his head about the injuries that he's going through. It's a bad way to take a shot at your teammate. So I didn't respect that at all whatsoever. And guys like Trey Murphy, guys like, Herb Jones and Brandon Ingram, they play fantastic. All three of them scoring above 20 points. Even Jonas on a tweaked ankle, he played good. Shea, man, one of the best players in the league, showed up in the fourth quarter. He performed well. So, I'm not a guy that was heavy on, Chet going to this team, but I do want to see how they do play with Chet when he comes back and how the role's going to be with him on the court, play probably like a stretch 4 position on for that team. And they got a whole lot of picks. They got about 15 first-round picks the next couple of years. Future's bright for them. So, it was a good win for them in this game. We're going to speak about the next game.
I mean, you mentioned Lou Dort, being the X factor and the game changer in this game. I feel like it was Josh Giddey, man. I didn't know Giddey had game like that. For him to just go out there and drop 31 and 9 and 10 so casually on this team, I thought it was just gonna be the Shea show and everybody's just gonna try to chip in where they can. But they gotta, Shea to get huge help from Giddey and Dort. Was huge, man. It was big for this team, and everybody else didn't necessarily have to contribute a lot. Everyone had to just play some defense and chip in their, 7 to 11 points. But man, the Pelicans, like you guys all mentioned, Brandon Ingram was just out there to die. Obviously Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, and JV, they try to do what they can. They try to do what they could, but the bench unit was terrible for this team. They lack a bench. But we knew that coming into this game. But CJ McCollum, I can't necessarily add on anything more to what you guys said about him. He was shit this game, and that's just who he is in the postseason. This guy's not a performer whatsoever. And to speak about the situation about him throwing subtle shots at Zion, it's just funny because this guy called KD a bitch, and the next thing you know, he brings KD onto his podcast, and then he tells KD, well, yeah, I thought we had a chance in that series against you guys, and this guy KD straight up laughed in his face, so disrespectful, so he didn't do nothing about that, and for him to just bash Zion right when he performed like that. It just made absolutely no sense to me. And if I'm Zion, man, I feel some type of way. And I honestly consider trying moving on from this franchise. I know we talked about him in the Pelicans organization just trading him, but if I'm Zion, bro, I'm not too sure if I want to be there anymore, man. Because each and every year, I know we all know that he can't stay healthy and play a full 82 and stuff like that. But for them to just constantly always bring him up and be like, if Zion could have played here, if Zion could have played there, like at the end of the day, this is the playing tournament we're talking about, and obviously. The team that is this team is just not all about Zion. You have Brandon Ingram there, you have CJ McCollum. The reason why you brought CJ was to kind of have this whole big three going on with him and BI and Zion. And unfortunately, Zion wasn't able to go. But CJ McCollum didn't do his part. He didn't do enough to give the Pelicans an opportunity to even give Zion a chance at coming back in the postseason. So it's just like, every time that something goes wrong, it's Zion that has to take all the heat for it. Like, what about when CJ is not playing well? What about when BI is not playing well during the season? Like, it all just comes back to Zion, and I don't think that's right. Obviously you got to put the light on where it's supposed to be at. Sometimes it's on BI, sometimes it's on CJ, sometimes on the coaching and everybody else in the mix. But it's just hella funny when this guy CJ just comes out and says, we gotta eat better, we gotta train better, we gotta sleep better, we gotta do all these things correctly. And then all of a sudden this guy goes out there and puts up 14 points, like he dropped like 40 points or something like that, man. It's just hilarious to me. But overall, very, very good one for the Thunder, man. They needed this one, and they got it.
Yeah, CJ McCollum, look at me, man. You can have a keto diet, you still go shoot 2 for 10. You suck.
No matter what type
Shut
of
up.
diet you're on. Man, but that thing, it does annoy me though. Every time the Pelicans do lose, or they lose a big game or something, and they don't blame anybody on the court. It's like, hey, Zion, they bring up Zion. Like, he's supposed to be on the court with them. You know, of course he is, but if he's injured, what can you do to fix that injury? You feel me? Like, if he's not on the court, it's got to be the guys on the court. But they all
It's just a cop out. Like,
yeah, it's a
but see,
cop
no,
out.
the thing is though, like, if CJ dropped 40 and said, "Yo, like, if Zion were here, we're gonna win." Okay, fair enough. You know, you did your part.
Yeah.
But the guy played like ass, and he's talking like he's a star. Like, no, Zion has nothing to do with you playing trash. Like,
Yeah.
stop. Like, I hate. You know, it's crazy. It creates a culture where everybody else starts blaming Zion on the rest of the team because
Mhm.
CJ's supposed to be one of the leaders of this team. Supposed to be one of the guys leading this team, and for some reason, this guy's taking subtle shots as Zion. So, I mean, I've seen this from CJ. I mean, last time when JJ Redick called out Zion in the media, talking about CJ and Zion, they haven't really spoken. And JJ Redick called out Zion. I'd expect CJ as a teammate to come out and defend Zion and be like, you know, maybe he's going through some things, or maybe we haven't just gotten to speaking yet. But you know, that's who CJ is. You know, he let KD laugh at him in his face. He let Draymond clown him before. This guy he's not that guy. So I'm not surprised about this.
I completely agree, man. But well, that guy's in Cancun now, and it's time for us to move on to the final two playing games. And to start off, we have the Miami Heat going up against the Chicago Bulls in a home game, and this is where the Bulls suffered their fate, and the Heat were able to win this one 102-91.
Yeah, this game was an up and down game, man. Like, again, I don't know what has happened to Bam Adebayo's offense since the All-Star break. I mean, completely fallen off a cliff. And like, if these were tough shots and you were not making them, I would be like, you know, he missed those tough shots. Those tough shots, the defense forced him into taking them. But this guy was missing bunnies. Like, that's the part that annoys me. Like, he's missing gimmies that he usually makes. But you know, Max Thompson, you know, Max Strus, he hooped this game, man. And it pisses me off because this is where Pat Riley's gonna smile and he's gonna re-sign this guy because of this one game. That's the thing that annoys me. But you know, he's phenomenal in this game, just shooting the rock. Just absolutely amazing. We got a battle between Caruso and Max Strus. You know, nobody would have said that before this game started, but that's exactly what we got in the first half, especially DeMar DeRozan. He had a good game, but Zach LaVine, man, this is where the enigma comes for Zach LaVine. This is where you're just like, what's going on with Zach LaVine? I mean, 6 for 21. That's not what he expected after the last game. And I feel like Zach LaVine is just, that's the inconsistency where it just lies with Zach LaVine, where one time you see this guy and he's an absolute superstar. The next is just a guy who just misses stuff that he should be making. So, I mean, in this game, the story was Jimmy Butler closing it out in the fourth quarter. I mean, I think he had 12 points in that fourth quarter, just dominated, getting to the basket, drawing fouls. And, you know, Kobe White, he tried to chip in, he tried to help out that team. But, you know, this team, it's to me another team that's in basketball purgatory. It's like the same situation with the Wizards where, you know, you don't know which direction you're heading in. And currently the roster as constructed with Vucevic and DeRozan and Zach LaVine, I just don't think this team is headed towards anything. They're a fringe playoff team. They're a fringe playing team. They're not a team built for success, and I think they just have to blow it up with DeMar and Vucevic and just try rebuilding around Zach and moving forward like that. So, because the roster as it is right now, it's not doing anything. So,
Man, the Strus was loose, as they say, huh? No, he was getting to it early in the game. He definitely earned himself. I know Pat's like pulling up the checkbook, which I honestly don't want. You want me to be honest? I didn't want us to win that game.
yeah, I would.
I'd rather just have a lottery pick or a pick outside the lottery. We'd have been at 14, but now we're gonna play Giannis, and he's gonna just beat us in 4. So I don't know why we won that game, but we won it. I'm gonna take what we can. They showed effort. Bam, like you said, his offense since after All-Star break has just been a bit odd. He gets the shots that he usually gets, but he's just not making them. I don't know if that's a confidence thing. I remember the game right after the Hawks game. He was like, "Yo, like I'm not getting the ball," but I'm thinking in my head like, "You have the ball right at the key, not right at the key, but like for the dribble handoff, like bro, like fake a handoff and like do a layup or something. Like get creative, bro." I don't know, man. He needs like a psychiatrist or something. I don't know what's wrong with that guy. But Jimmy was on his stuff. I respect that. Tyler had like he was just out there game. You know, one of those like I'm just out here just like doing whatever I can, but I'm not really on anything. But other than that, we won. I'll take a good Strus game and Jimmy game. So shout out to the guys, man.
Man, big game from Jimmy, man. You know, playoff Jimmy showed up in the fourth quarter. Yeah, this is the Jimmy ball I've been waiting for, you know. First playing game, he didn't show up at all. Second game, that fourth quarter, he looked different, and that's what Miami needed. He came in, took over. Max Struss, man, Pat Riley, and this guy finds guys off the corner in Miami. He probably was partying in a nightclub in Miami. He was like, "Hey, man, you're 6'6", you probably can shoot the ball. I'm gonna pull you out. Let's go." Gave him a little nice contract, and hey, today was the day he showed up, and that's what the Heat needed. And we always talked about Zach LaVine and him being consistent in big games, and not even big games, just in general in the season. One game he'll go for 40, and the next game he'll drop down 6 for 22, 6 for 23, and he's not playing up to par. He's going back to lackadaisical shots. He's shooting, a bunch of jumpers, mid-rangers. He's not attacking the rim. He's not being aggressive. And that's what it looked against the Heat. Wasn't aggressive whatsoever. And like I just said, the Bulls, they're in that weird predicament where they don't know what the future is looking like, and they don't know with Debo's age, with what's his face, Vucevic's age as well. Those type of guys, like, what are they gonna do with him in the next upcoming years? They have a couple young guys in Patrick Williams, Ayu Domosu, even Kobe White. Maybe when Lonzo does come back, hopefully he does come back healthy for them. I mean, they do got a bunch of young guys, but where does the future lie for them? LaVine he probably wants out after this offseason, depending on how the team looks in this offseason. But man, that fourth quarter run, they had the lead. Kobe White was hitting a couple threes. If LaVine and DeMarco had a couple shots in that fourth quarter, it could have been a different outcome. But LaVine was not there at all. So, Miami came in, Jimmy Butler, playoff Butler. Max Struss, he showed up, and yeah, bam, 1 for 9, 8 points. I don't know what the hell has happened to this guy. I feel like he's just lost his offense. He's not being physical. I don't see the post moves. The mid-range jump shot's not there anymore. There's a lot of stuff going on with him offensively in the end, but he did have that big block in the end of the game to kind of seal the deal, and it was pretty big. So great defensive performance by him. 17 rebounds. He kind of chipped in there and helped there. But Miami, they still got some issues. Size wise, they got to fix up on getting another big to pair with Bam to stretch the floor for him. But we'll see what happens.
After losing the rebounding battle with the Atlanta Hawks by a huge margin, it was nice. It was good to see the Miami Heat come back and win the rebounding battle versus my Chicago Bulls. But to speak about this game, man, this game was extremely defensive. Both teams were playing hard on that end of the floor, and even in the fourth quarter, even throughout Zach LaVine's struggles and stuff like that, and Nikola Vucevic not necessarily showing up. That game was still there for the Chicago Bulls, man. I feel like it came down to coaching. Honestly, Kobe White really being the spark off the bench in the fourth quarter, hitting 3 threes, and then next thing you know, he gets subbed out for Patrick Beverley, who doesn't necessarily provide anything on offense. And to speak about Patrick Beverley for 1 second, I think he had 0 points in 26 minutes. So it's like, obviously we all know you're throwing him out there for defensive purposes and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like just you got to stick with the guys that are giving you the buckets. And just let those guys play, give effort on the defensive side of the ball. I understand Jimmy Butler was just going to hunt down Kobe White or Zach LaVine, but it is what it is at that point. If Kobe White can give you, threes and Jimmy Butler's throwing back twos, you're kind of still winning in that aspect of the game. But overall, Jimmy Butler, way to respond. It's kind of like the story kind of flipped. Zach LaVine showed up in that first playing game. Jimmy Butler didn't against the Hawks, and the next thing you know, Zach LaVine doesn't play well. Jimmy Butler shows up. So. Obviously that was the edge, and Bam, obviously we talked about his struggles early on, but I think 17 rebounds and his defensive presence was a huge problem for the Chicago Bulls. And I mean, for the Bulls, their future, man, they have 8 guys they don't necessarily have a contract, and obviously you might want to move on from DeMar DeRozan because it's just not going to work out, this fit between him and LaVine. Obviously the direction you want to go in is you want to keep LaVine for as long as possible, but LaVine, even though he's a great player, he's a good player, but he has his moments where he's inconsistent and stuff like that. This guy can be very, very solid on the championship contending team, so he's going to want out really, really soon if the Bulls don't necessarily provide him with the roster good enough to win. So overall, it was a good one for Miami. Not necessarily too mad about it. The Orlando Magic are the true biggest winners coming out of the Chicago Bulls loss simply because they have their draft pick for this year. But I mean, hey, the winner goes on a date with the Milwaukee Bucks for a full series. So good luck to y'all. But let's go ahead and move on to the last playing game. We have the Oklahoma City Thunder going up against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Unfortunately, the Thunder weren't able to pull out this time around. The Timberwolves dominate this game 120-95.
Yeah, this was first half. It was a close game, and then towards the third quarter and then fourth quarter, it's just the game opened up like crazy. I mean, this was a point that everybody had made even going into the general play-in games was just OKC's lack of size. And when you're going up against Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert, you're just gonna have no shot whatsoever because you have Jalen Williams, the center for Arkansas, guarding Rudy Gobert, and then you have Jalen guarding Karl Anthony Towns, and that's just a mismatch. You have a 6'6" guard guarding 6'11" guy, and then you have a 6'8" center guarding a 7-footer. So you're gonna have absolutely no chance on the glass, and it's what the Timberwolves emphasized as soon as they got into this game. Just feed everybody that's just above 6'8" in this game, and then of course Shea's struggles in this game, and that's a combination of shots that he usually makes. Like he was missing bunnies where he would step up and under, and then his cousin for some reason was just decided, I know all your moves, so I'm just gonna clamp you up this game. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, he played a phenomenal defensive game. He kept himself disciplined. He wasn't fouling Shea, and then Shea, of course, he was missing shots, and it was a combination of Timberwolves just basically saying, we'll force Josh Giddey and Lou Dort to beat us, and they were getting their open shots and they just weren't making them from outside. Lou Dort, he had a pretty decent game still, in my opinion, but even then, they still didn't respect his shot. They didn't respect Josh Giddey's shot, and this is where the whole concerns about not having Chet really came up. This is where, if somebody was watching this game, this is where someone like Chet would have filled in, because they had no paint defense whatsoever, no rebounding at all, no floor spacing, just a lack of a vertical threat. And so the next step, this is just a next step for OKC's development, but they can't be mad at this result. They made it this far. They were projected 17.5 wins without Chet this year. And they, to make it all the way into the play-in and be potentially almost into the playoffs, is just a right step in the direction for them. So they can't be too mad about this result.
Yeah, that's definitely a step in the right direction. I mean, obviously being projected as a lottery team to practically making your way to the playoffs is really impressive. Yeah, I mean the glaring holes about this game was basically, they just flat out just didn't have a big. Like they had Rudy Gobert licking his chops, and if Rudy Gobert's licking his chops, that's the sign of like, hey, we need a big, and obviously like Chet is gonna be that guy to kind of be the one to be the loomer around the defense. They're probably gonna have him at the four, so I'm excited to see him get back. But as far as the Thunder, like they know what their issues are, and then they go like clean that up and just fix that up in the offseason. So I mean, salute to them, they go get back. But then other than that, as far as the Wolves side, I like the way what's called Kyle Anderson was dishing out the ball. Uh, Anthony Edwards had a decent game. Cat, that guy was hooping. The jump shot was looking right. I'm excited to see how they play against the Nuggets.
Yeah, what stood out for me was, Cat being more aggressive, attacking the paint. He only made 1 3. You had 28 points. A lot of it was, playing physical. He's seen the mismatches inside, and he took advantage of that. That's what I expect Cat to do for a lot of, teams that play smaller guards on him, smaller forwards on him, put small forwards on him. Got to be aggressive, attack the paint. Don't be scared, And this game, he came out and did that. But the size-wise, it was just Gobert and Cat. They dominated in the paint. When you got Gobert scoring 21 points, it's like, the hell can he do? He really can't do much. We don't see Gobert score 21 points like that. It's once in a blue moon. You feel me? So that happened, and I felt like they played phenomenal defense on Shea. They played phenomenal defense on Giddey. Giddey, from his first game in the play to this game, it just looked like two completely different players. Like it was him the first game, and then his twin played the second game, and we really didn't see much of him in the second game. So they kind of swapped out, and he played like some shit the second game, and he wasn't showing up. But Minnesota's, their starting five played consistent. They played fantastic. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, played good. Ant came back from that first horrible game that he had against the Lakers. He came up 19 points, 8 for 19, but it's much better than what he did against the Lakers. Mike Conley, another consistent game. Slow-mo coming off the bench. He played fantastic. But like I said, projected 17 wins coming into this season. OKC outplayed everything that people said about them. And to be here, to be in this spot was perfect for them. And they're going to come back next year even stronger. They're going to get Chet back. They're going to be back in the draft, multiple picks. Who knows what they can do in free agency with the team they have right now. So for them, it's not looking like, hey, be disappointed, be down. You guys fought your way up here, made the play-ins, and almost had a chance to make the playoffs. So good for them. They're going to go back to the drawing board with a lot of pieces. And Minnesota versus Timberwolves. Minnesota versus the Nuggets. I'm kind of excited to see that series. I want to see if Cat's aggressive against Jokic, and having Cat and Gobert playing on Jokic. We're going to see what happens, but we'll see.
Yeah, man. Good things happen when Karl Anthony Towns isn't in foul trouble, man. Let's start off by saying that. Let's take note of that. Cat had himself a hell of a game. Rudy Gobert, doing behind the backs, doing things that he's never done in his life before. So it's just like, it was just that type of day for the Timberwolves, man. Those guys just went out there and had fun. They just started hooping. Anthony Edwards way to bounce back, almost had himself a triple double. And obviously, with Shea and his struggles, obviously the train is only going to go as far as Shea leads it. He's the leader, he's the engine of this team. If he's not going, everybody else is not going to go. So I'm not surprised to see Giddey and everybody else really struggle like that, because obviously once they see their leader down, it's kind of tough to try to pick it back up when he's kind of like the guy who has the ball in his hands majority of the time. But watching that game, obviously it's evident these guys need a rim protector. Chet could help him out in that aspect of the game, obviously, and rebounding and stuff like that. I do believe they do need an anchor down there as well. Another guy they could pair alongside Chet. Chet does have the ability to stretch the floor, so obviously, on the defensive side, it could be him and somebody else, and then on offense, it could look a little bit different with him stretching the floor out. So, the Oklahoma City Thunder, man, these guys they've had themselves a hell of a season. They had a good run. Obviously, they have an interesting and nice little offseason to look forward to. They're going to get their number 3 overall pick back, number 2 overall pick back in Chet. But obviously Minnesota, going on to a matchup with the Denver Nuggets. It's going to be interesting to see how they try to use their size against Jokic, obviously, and Aaron Gordon as well. So, and how they match up. So it's going to be interesting to see. Overall, good win for them. But that pretty much wraps up our NBA play-in tournament recap. But now it's time to move on to the NBA playoffs, man. My favorite time of the year, where high stakes basketball each and every game, games every other day, games each and every day, man. I just love to see it. And let's go ahead and start off with the Eastern Conference. We'll give our predictions there, and then we'll go ahead and move back down to the Western Conference, which I believe is more interesting. But we'll go ahead and start off with the number one seed in the Milwaukee Bucks, matching up with you guys' Miami Heat. Who do you guys think is going to win? How many games?
It's gonna be the Bucks, and it's gonna be a sweep. I'm not even give one Jimmy Butler game. It's gonna be a sweep, a clean sweep. I mean, just a total lack. This is just giving me PTSD from 2021. Like that's exactly the type of feeling I'm getting from this type of game. I mean, Bam, he's gonna try to exercise his demons versus Brook Lopez. I don't think that's gonna happen with how he's been playing post All-Star break. Jimmy Butler, just a total lack of shooters around him. I mean, we went from one of the best, if not the best, 3-point shooting teams in the league last year to like bottom 5, bottom 3 in the league this season. So you're going up against a Bucks team with the arguably the best player in the world in Giannis, with a 6'5" power forward and Bam Adebayo next to him. I mean, that's just a recipe for disaster. I don't expect us to even get a single game. It's just going to be a mauling on the glass. It's going to be a mauling in the paint. And if Bam has to switch out, I mean, I can't even imagine what Giannis is going to do to us. I mean, Bam sits for 5 minutes. They're going to score 15 plus points if Giannis is on the floor. So I expect this to be a sweep, and they're just going to dominate 100%. It's going to be easier for them.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of go on the positive side and say we get a gentleman's sweep, maybe like one good game, but you debunked all of that. So I'm still gonna go that angle. I think we get one, just on the glaring fact that maybe, like you said, like Jimmy might just have like a crazy good game, like a 40 piece. But as far as defensively, I think we're gonna play a lot of zone, which I mean, obviously they have shooters, so that's gonna like be like no trouble for them at all. And yeah, I mean, we're playing Giannis. We're playing arguably like one of the what's it called, the finalists for Defensive Player of the Year in Brook Lopez. So yeah, I mean, to be honest, we're screwed. But it's gonna be a fun little series for us to kind of just run around and just have some fun. That's how I see it. Let's have some fun, guys. Come on, Heat.
I'm gonna give the gentleman a sweep. 4-1. I'm gonna give Miami one game. I think they do pull one game. Jimbo's gonna do some playoff awards. He's gonna show up against the Bucks. He'll probably get like 22 free throws. Score 40 points, 18 points on the field. But 22 free throws is a lot. But I do expect him to pull off one. But Giannis, Brook Lopez, Drew Holiday, Bobby Portis, guys like that. They're playing phenomenal. One guy's a 6-man of the year candidate. Another guy's a MVP candidate. Another guy's a defensive candidate. Even Drew Holiday, like you can throw him up there as one of the best two-way players in the league as well. So there's gonna be a lot going on for Miami to handle. And yeah, Bucks 4-1. It ain't much to say. We know what's gonna happen.
I agree, man. I agree. There's not much to say about this series. I do believe there's going to be one sweep in the Eastern Conference, but I'm kind of thinking about which one it's going to be between this series and the Atlanta Hawks and Boston Celtics series. But I'll go ahead and pick this one. I like the backcourt in Atlanta to get one game at home. against the Celtics, man. It's just this series is gonna be a straight mauling, man. Honestly, there's no true answer for Giannis. He's gonna have his way with the Miami Heat, and then it's just gonna be struggles all around when he has to kick out to all these shooters, and he has space, all across the floor. So it's gonna be a nice little reality check for the Miami Heat. Obviously I mentioned it later in the season. Uh, the Miami Heat are kind of in this cycle where they do great one year, then they kind of take a step back and do great another year and kind of take a step back. This is one of those years where they take a huge step back and get bounced in the first round, gets by in the sweep. So it's gonna put a lot of pressure on Pat Riley to make some moves. So as a Miami Heat fan, there's something to look forward to in the offseason if Pat Riley could just retool this roster and make a move for a superstar to pair alongside Jimmy Butler, because obviously Jimmy Butler is not getting any younger, and we all know that he has a lot of mileage on him, and he only shows up in the postseason to play. And it'd be nice to have a complimentary superstar alongside him, and then Tyler Hero and Bam, and then there's some solid rotational players. You got yourself a squad. So I'm gonna go ahead and say the Bucks sweep the Miami Heat in this one, and then they end up fixing their roster coming into next year. But let's go ahead and move on to a more interesting series between the 4 and the 5 seed. We have the Cleveland Cavaliers playing the New York Knicks.
I think this series goes to 7. Just because, for one, on the Cleveland Cavaliers side, there's question marks regarding the lack of wings that they have in our preseason when we were talking about the best duos in the league, and we're talking about the Cavaliers. Like, my question mark was never for the backcourt. I feel like that backcourt is a phenomenal fit in how they work together and they operate offensively, but defensively and offensively, that small forward position has always just been an issue for the Cavs all season long. They've had Isaac Okoro there. They have Lamar Stevens there. They had Dean Wade there. They had a lot of people try to fill in Karis LeVert at times, and none of them were able to actually fit that role of a small forward that they needed. And it's been an issue all season long. And the lack of bench depth, outside of Ricky Rubio and Chetty Osman, like, who do they really have to operate off their bench? Kevin Love last year was their 6th Man of the Year finalist, and he's not on that team anymore. He's washed. They have nobody on that bench to operate. The Knicks, they have been playing great in the second half of the season with Jalen Brunson leading the way and Julius Randle there as well. And they're getting in good production from the role players like Mitchell Robinson and Josh Hart. So I think this series is going to go to 7, but ultimately I have the Cavs winning this series just because of Donovan Mitchell. I feel like Donovan Mitchell, to me, he's just an absolute stud in the playoffs. He's a playoff riser, and his level of shot making is going to be the reason why the Cavs end up pulling out this series. I just feel like what he brings to the table in terms of his scoring come playoff time is second to none. Amongst shooting guards, he's right there with Devin Booker, and he has a case of being the best shooting guard in the league. That's how much I feel like this guy, when it's time to show up, he's going to show up. So, I have the Cavs winning this series. It's going to be interesting with Mobley versus Randall, and, how they attack that and how they end up getting Randall to get his touches and be able to score. But I have the Cavs winning in 7.
This series arguably is probably the best series in the East, without a doubt. Other than that, like, we got the playoff performer, we got D Mitch out there. You know what he's capable of. Obviously, like Brunson, he showed it last year. He's capable of being that guy in the playoffs. This series honestly is the most intriguing one. As far as my favorite to win this one, I can't lie. I'm kind of leaning towards the Knicks. I don't know. Yeah, no, I'm leaning towards the Knicks. Let me get the Knicks, and I'll say that for this reason why I feel like Randall's finally gonna get it together. He's finally gonna get it together. I know he does a lot of shot chucking. I know he does a lot of like inconvenient shots, but he's finally gonna get it together. And Brunson kind of keeps him sane. And then we got Quickly. Quickly is obviously in contention for 6th Man of the Year. I think they win it at 7.
Yeah, like Hennis said, man, this probably the best series that we got going on in the East, compared to the other three series, I feel like this one is, man, you got, on one side, Garland, Mitchell, and the other side you got Randall, and you got, what's his face, Jalen Brunson, and you guys got Obi Toppin coming off the bench, Josh Hart coming off the bench, Emmanuel Quickly coming off the bench. They got some solid pieces, and then you go back to the Cavs with Mobley, Jared Allen, and more solid pieces on that team. And for me, it all comes down, it's gonna be Donovan Mitchell, and we know what type of player he is when we've seen him perform in the playoffs. I feel like he's going to take it over the edge again, but I feel like it's going 7. I'm gonna have the Cavs winning this in 7. I feel like defensively with Jared Allen and Mobley, they're going to give problems to Julius Randle in the paint. We're probably going to see that soon, and I can't wait for that. But at the same time, man, Brunson's a dog. You know, that guy is a hooper. He came into this Knicks team. For me, I feel like he's the best Knicks player. You know, a lot of people say Julius Randle, but for me, I feel like Brunson's the game changer. The way he can attack the paint, the fadeaways, the stuff he does, I feel like he's the game changer. Especially, you know, with him handling the ball a lot, and you know, RJ being a ghost most of the time in games. I expect him to
That
take.
guy's gonna be the reason why they lose the series. If they
Yeah,
lose
I
the
feel
series,
like if RJ doesn't
RJ,
step up, I feel like they're gonna lose the series because RJ's not there.
Did you
And
agree with me last week in our last episode when I said Brunson was the best player on the Knicks?
pretty sure I did. I think I'd be said
I
Randall.
for sure, I said Randall.
I was been a Brunson fan. I agree with you on that.
For sure.
So yeah,
I'm a Randall believer, man.
like I said, RJ. I feel like RJ Barrett's gonna be a key in the series, and if he doesn't show up, man, I feel like they're gonna lose the series. You know, if guys like quickly, hopefully they can keep
But
on.
so be it. I feel like Brunson got us. Why do we need RJ to show up? Like,
I mean, RJ's another
he
big threat on
provides.
the team, though.
The
Like,
thing is, RJ's gonna get open
Yeah.
shots. He's gonna get
yeah,
shots.
if he doesn't show up and like he doesn't do what he's supposed to do, it's kind of kind of gives off vibes like, hey, this guy we paid him a lot of big type of money and he's not there performing. It's like a waste of space. You feel me? Yeah. So I feel like Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, those two guys, especially Garland, I do want to see him step up a lot more. I feel like he got to take more into consideration that he doesn't need to take the seat back from Donovan Mitchell. He just got to play his type of game and go get it. He go be more aggressive, and we're gonna see that hopefully. So I got the Cavs in 7.
Hey man, I completely hear you guys when you guys talk about D Mitch and him being a playoff riser, man. We see it each and every year and stuff like that. But I'm glad we have Hennon on today's episode rocking with me, man, because I'm going with the Knicks in this one, man. It's gonna be an interesting series. I got these guys winning in 7. Just simply on the fact that it's just gonna be tough to stop this guy Jalen Brunson, and I feel like it doesn't matter what you throw at him. It doesn't matter what type of size the Cleveland Cavaliers got with Mobley and Jared Allen. This guy just gets to any spot that he wants on the court, and it's an automatic bucket. These guys, obviously, I've highlighted it early on in the preseason. These guys don't have wing depth, and they can't defend the ball. They can't defend anybody's best offensive player. They're gonna have a lot of struggles with that. So it's just like, what can the Cavs do to slow down Jalen Brunson? You can't necessarily double him because, like, obviously the New York Knicks, they got some options. The Julius Randle could do his thing. RJ Barrett, when he gets it together, he can do his thing quickly. Josh Hart can do his thing. Like, it's just like you can't necessarily throw a double team at Jalen Brunson and try to get the ball out of his hands and kind of just have somebody else try to beat you type thingy. So it's just like, I think the edge is really simply the lack of wing defenders that the Cleveland Cavaliers have is why I have the Knicks winning this one. I think RJ Barrett is the X factor, though. I do agree with you guys because I think Jalen Brunson is going to bring it. I think Julius Randle is going to have himself a nice little series. He's going to be able to bring it. And these guys, they do have a little bit of depth to them. Josh Hart coming off the bench, he's going to be playing heavy minutes quickly. We talked about, I know me and Bandit talked about him kind of being the Jordan Poole, Maxey, Tyler Hero, Simons kind of guy for the New York Knicks. And he kind of showed that this year coming off the bench. And even when he started a couple of games this year. So it's just like he needs to step up off the bench. Obi Toppin could do his thing. And their backup big Hartenstein could do his thing, kind of give a breather to guys like Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson. So I feel like, this series is going to go back and forth between these two teams, man. It's going to be entertaining as hell. But I got to give the Knicks the edge in this one, man. So it's just going to come down to, who could play the better defense. And I feel like I trust the Knicks on that end of the ball. And I feel like, obviously Donovan Mitchell can do his thing, but I got to see something else from everybody else around him. It's going to have to be Garland, because Garland's his running mate. You can't necessarily rely on guys like Chetty Osman and Okoro and Stevens and stuff like that. And Mobley can do his thing a little bit, but he's not necessarily a guy you can give the ball to and be like, hey, go get yourself a bucket. So it's going to be interesting to see, but go ahead and give me the Knicks in 7, man. I got these guys moving on to the second round. But let's go ahead and move on to the next series, man. We had the Philadelphia 76ers playing the Brooklyn Nets. I'm sorry. Who do we got winning?
I have the 76ers in 5 in this game. The 76ers have the MVP on their side. They have Joel Embiid, who I think is going to win the MVP. To me, who's been the favorite all year long and my pick for it. But simply, it comes down to one. They have him, and on the other side, they don't have a secondary scorer. I mean, who is their next best scorer after Mikal Bridges? And that's the issue with Brooklyn Nets ever since Michael came into town. Who's going to be a reliable secondary scorer for these guys? I mean, Cam Johnson, he's a good little shooter, movement shooter, but is that really enough? Is he going to put pressure on the defense? Spencer Dinwiddie, he's too up and down. Cam Thomas doesn't even play. I mean, where is the production going to come as a secondary scorer? Sorry, they have a bunch of shooters on the outside, but if you have nobody that puts pressure on the defense, how are you going to stop them? And James Harden, he's going to do his role in terms of facilitating. And I just feel like this is going to be a comfy 5-game series where one game is just going to be Mikal Bridges and everybody getting hot for the Brooklyn Nets. Other than that, I just don't see a situation where they're going to stop this offense. They've been a top 5 offense all year long, and they've been a top 7 defense for the most part. So, I just don't see them stopping them.
Yeah, so this one actually, to be quite honest, this one could go into a sweep if the Sixers really lock in and just like, hey, like let's like get our dirty laundry out and let's clean it up and let's get right. They could definitely sweep this team. The MVP, they got Embiid, of course. He's been that guy this season. They got the assist leader, James Harden, Tyrese Maxey. They got guys there. I'm not gonna say Tobias Harris is a guy he never been. And then other than that, like they can really sweep this team if they really lock in. So like the part of my heart's telling me, yo, like this is gonna be a sweep. But I feel like you said, I feel like Mikal Bridges could probably just sneak away with like one good game. So I'm gonna go gentleman sweep, Sixers in 5.
Y'all tripping. The Nets got no superstars or anybody on that team. Like Miami, like we picked him because of Jimmy Butler. You feel me? Like this is Jimmy Butler. Okay, we're gonna give him a chance at least one game. But the Nets, I got Sixers sweeping them 4-0. Hey, not Cam Johnson. Mikal Bridges can go for his 35, 40, whatever it is. He can cook up. But you guys got guys like Spencer Dinwiddie or Dinwiddie shit like word to what's his face? Kuzma said whatever his name is, Din Shitty or Din whatever. That guy's ass. Cam Johnson, he's not trash, but he's not a guy that I'm gonna go to as a second option. Nick Classen's not an offensive scorer. I can't even pair out the rest of the people that start on that team. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like you guys giving him a game chance, that's crazy. To me, I feel like the Sixers, they're coming in, with an objective. They want to, set the tone right away. They want to get comfortable in this playoffs and get Embiid, get Harden cooking, get Maxey involved, and hopefully Tobias Harris involved, which Tobias was today in this game. But to me, I don't see the Nets pulling off one game. I see 4-0 sweep. I see Embiid, Harden having fun with him. Embiid had an okay game today, but he really didn't need to do much. Harden had a fantastic game, and the other guys pitched in well. So I do see a sweep coming. Mikal Bridges had a good game today, but they lost by 20 still. So he can keep on having good games. Defensively, they're not going to stop Embiid. They're not going to stop Harden. They're not going to stop Maxey. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of see it though. It's going to be a gentleman's sweep because I feel like the Brooklyn Nets can get hot. So personally, I'm gonna go gentleman's sweep, but I think Henna hit it around the head to start it off, man. If these guys, the 76ers, want to be a serious team, if they want to put teams like the Milwaukee Bucks and teams like the Boston Celtics on notice and kind of send a message to them, and by really just dominating a series, they got to do it right now. And I feel like they can do it this series. This is a series to do it. The first round, you send a message to those two teams. You get the Brooklyn Nets, who are a team that obviously I don't think they should be in the playoffs because KD and Kyrie kind of did all the heavy lifting, and Mikal Bridges and these guys kind of came in just steady the ship. So if the Sixers are who they say they are, who they think they are, they try to get these boys out of here in 4, and then they move on. And they're already game planning for the Boston Celtics when they come out of their series. So I think it's gonna be 5 though. Give me the Sixers in 5. I think one game, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, and these guys, they all just get extremely hot. I think it's probably gonna be game 3 at home. Or I think it's going to be game 3, but it's going to be either one of those home games that they got. It's probably Philly is going to lose one of those games, come back to home, and end the series right there. So go ahead and give me the Sixers in 5. Not much to say about this series. I think James Harden and Joel Embiid are going to have a lot of fun. Maxey can contribute where he can. Tobias Harris, if he wants to show up and be that max player that they paid him to be. So it's going to be interesting. But the Sixers should get these guys out of here in 4. But I'm going 5. But we'll go ahead and talk about the last series in the first round for the Eastern Conference. We have the number 2 seed Boston Celtics going up against the Atlanta Hawks. Who do we got?
Sweep. The Celtics. 100%. I didn't even have to think about this. I mean, Trae Young played against the Miami Heat last year, and he got dogged. He got absolutely dogged. Now he's playing against an even better defense with more depth and better guard play. I mean, Like, this guy's going to be going up against Malcolm Brogdon, Derek White, Jalen Brown, Jason Tatum, Al Horford, Robert Williams, a bunch of switchable defenders who, Trae Young, a lot of his production comes off being able to operate out of the pick and roll. And these guys aren't just going to allow that. They have a lot of athletic defenders. They're going to swarm him. They're going to give him problems. They have a lot of length. They're just going to bother his shot. I just feel like Trae Young isn't going to have another good series. He's going to be a playoff dropper again this series, especially against the Celtics. They have too many athletes. I mean, Derek White has been playing phenomenal all season long as a starter. I mean, this guy should get considerations for all NBA defensive team. I mean, he's been absolutely like bonkers on that end. Jason Tatum, of course, he's been an MVP level candidate all season long, and Jalen Brown, he's been an all-star, all NBA type of guy, and I just don't see a situation where they can even pull out one game just because of the sheer amount of talent and depth that these guys have. And really, I think that these guys are going to end up playing 35 minutes a game max. I don't think they'll even touch 40 for the most part in this series. That's how much I believe this Celtics team are just going to dominate the Hawks. They're my pick for the entire playoffs. They're my pick for the finals. This team's just too good, man.
This is a point blank period. This is going to be a sweep. I agree with you on that. The fact that they're just trying to just get this done and get this over with and prepare for Philly, because obviously that's where the challenge lies. But obviously this team's like they're built for the postseason. They got a 1A, Jason Tatum. They got a 1B, Jalen Brown. Al Horford go hit that corner shot a couple times, and then they got Robert Williams to roam around, which he does effectively, of course. And then Derek White, he doesn't get a lot of respect. He's kind of underrated, but he's definitely been on. He's been on stuff this season for sure. And then Malcolm Brogdon is contention for Sixth Man of the Year. His game's boring, but like he's really been on his game as well. So I mean, this team is definitely built for the long run. They're built for the postseason. I'm excited to see what they do onward.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think Big H went to the bathroom, so I'll go ahead and piggyback off what you just said. So I think obviously I mentioned that there's going to be one sweep in the Eastern Conference, and I thought it was going to be this series, but I changed it up and I went with the Bucks. So I think this series ends in 5 though. It's not going to go any further than that. It's like I feel like Trae Young, he's going to struggle a little bit. Obviously we saw him go up against the Heat and we all saw how aggressive they were with him. I feel like it's going to be real tough to do it against this Boston defense, man. And obviously I feel like in one game, maybe in game 3 or game 4, Trae could possibly get a little hot against the Celtics. Maybe DeJounte does his thing. Maybe this bench unit, do their thing and still one game. But that's about it, man. The Boston Celtics, you hit it around the head, man. These guys are built for the postseason. We saw their run last year, man, with the way they started. They attacked the Brooklyn Nets from the jump, man. They got KD and Kyrie out of there in 4. They took advantage of Giannis not having Chris Middleton in that second round, and with the Jason Tatum Game 6 performance, forcing that series to go to 7 and taking care of business at home, and then unfortunately, handing you guys an L in that Eastern Conference Finals, but still a hell of a series all the way up until the NBA Finals, giving the Warriors a little bit of a push, a little bit of a fight, but even though they came up short, they still had a good season to look back on, man. With the way their season started last year, really not picking it up until early January, where Ime really had to challenge these guys. And now that even though they don't even have Ime anymore, Mazzulla came in, but the identity was already built. Like, these guys know what type of brand of basketball they want to play, and they're not going to go away from it. This team,
and they're even better offensively, honestly.
It's like these guys just know, like, I know how the Boston Celtics are. These guys are going to check up a lot of threes, and then Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown can really break down the defense. But like, that's just how the game is now. That's the way the game is going, and it worked for them last year, and it's working at a higher rate this year. So I think these guys, get them out of here in 5 games, and then hopefully Trae Young in this offseason, he really looks himself in the mirror and tells himself, I cannot be in Atlanta one more day. Obviously the whole DeJounte Murray trade, it didn't work out and stuff like that, and to how he wanted it to be. But this roster is just not good enough to compete against a championship contending team in Boston. So go ahead and give me the Celtics to win this one in 5.
You guys giving a lot of trash teams one game every single time. I believe Boston's gonna abuse these guys, abuse them. Right? There's nothing else that Trae Young or DeJounte Murray can do. It's going to be tough for them in the backcourt. They're going to throw different looks at him. Tatum is going to be on him. Jalen Brown's going to be on him. Marcus Smart's going to be on him. Brogdon's going to be on him. The switches, the doubles with Robert Williams coming off the screen. Even Horford's a fantastic defender. They're going to put him through hell. And I expect every game to just be a blowout. And we know what Boston is. I feel like Boston's one of the best teams in the East, up there with Milwaukee Bucks. Jason Tatum's a top 5 player. Jaylen Brown's one of the best two-way players in the league as well. And they got a fantastic roster. So I don't expect the Hawks to come in and, do much, especially against a top-tier defense like this and a fantastic offense like Boston has with the depth they have on the bench. I feel like it's going to be a lot for Atlanta to handle. And, who knows? This might be Trae Young's last year in the Atlanta Hawk jersey, them not giving him too much help up front, not building the roster successfully around for him to succeed like certain other teams do around their star players. Who knows if he wants to be out of there? They came out dangling, hey, we might give the green light at Trae Young. We might want him off the team and everything. A lot of stuff's a possibility this summer, but I don't expect them to get one game. I got Boston winning in 4.
It's kind of interesting thing to look at. One last thing before we move on. It's like the what worked for the Atlanta Hawks with Trae Young and DeJounte Murray in that game against Miami was just having another guy to control the game. I feel like in this series it's not going to be help at all because Trae Young is going to throw the ball to DeJounte when Marcus Smart's on him, and then DeJounte's going to have the ball with Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum on him, and the Celtics can switch from 1 through 5, and it's just going to be really tough for these guys. So. But enough about the Boston Celtics. They'll handle business as we all predicted. Let's go ahead and move on to the Western Conference, man, where the dogfight is going to begin. This is what we've been waiting for the last 3 months. We wanted to watch these teams in the Western Conference just go at it. And let's go ahead and start off with the number 1 seed Denver Nuggets, man. They go up against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Who do we got?
I know a lot of people definitely thought this series would have been more interesting with Jaden McDaniels being there and Naz Reid being there. I feel like it would have made things a lot more intriguing and interesting, but with those guys not being available, I think I have Nuggets in 5. I just simply think that this offense that they have is just ridiculous. I mean, Jokic at the centerpiece of it all, and the lack of Jaden McDaniels being there. I feel like the biggest X factor in the series and a guy who I expect to have a huge series is Michael Porter Jr. No Jaden McDaniels there, and this guy's been absolutely ridiculous from the 3-point line. I just feel like Jokic is going to generate a lot of looks, and if they have a lineup where they're playing Cat and Gobert, I feel like that's easy for the Nuggets to defend because you're going to have Aaron Gordon who can move his feet against someone like Cat, and Gobert is going to be taking up space in the paint, and it's just going to be the floor is going to be too strong versus them. And even when you try to play something with Aaron Gordon versus Slomo and Jokic versus Cat, I feel like that's still something that that they can counter. And usually you would have had Jaden McDaniels guarding someone like Jamal Murray, but you won't. You have Anthony Edwards guarding Jamal Murray, and I feel like that's a downgrade with that 2-man game that they have. And I just don't think that they'll have enough advantages to take care of versus someone like Jokic. I think he's gonna have a huge series, and this Nuggets offense is built for success. And versus a team like the Wolves who aren't as disciplined as them and whose offense isn't as good as them, I just believe the Nuggets are going to win the series in 5.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you on that. I think this is easily a Nuggets winning the series flat out in 5. The fact that they lost their best perimeter defender, Jaden McDaniels. That's the guy you could throw at their best player. You could throw at a Jamal Murray in the perimeter, and then have Anthony Edwards rest on the defensive end. Because if he's trying on the defensive end, it's going to affect him on the offensive end. So I mean, they're missing out on that, and then obviously Gobert clogging the paint is not going to help either. So yeah, I mean, they just got to chop it up for next year. But obviously, the Nuggets are nothing to play with, and they're going to win this in 5 nonetheless. There's nothing to say about this series.
Yeah, I feel like it's gonna be a tough series. Maybe if they had McDaniels, maybe if they had Naz Reid coming off the bench, maybe it looked different. But missing those 2 key guys, 2 contributors to that team, I feel like it's gonna be tough, especially with Gobert. When Cat's sitting on the bench and Gobert's by himself, they're gonna throw Gobert into a whole lot of situations. He's about to get cooked, pick and roll situations, and that it's gonna be tough. Ant's gonna be thrown into some tough positions as well defensively. He's gonna have to guard Jamal Murray. He's gonna have to switch sometimes and be on Jokic through those switches, and it's gonna be tough for him on the defensive side of the ball. But I probably agree with you guys. I probably have the Nuggets going in 5. Offensively, they've been fantastic this year, especially with Jokic. The efficiency that he's been putting up, he's been a phenomenal player, one of the best players in the league at this point right now. So, yeah, I don't expect him to struggle against the 8th seed. I don't expect him to struggle against Gobert. Last time they played, Gobert was yelling, "Yeah, man, I got him," and Jokic responded back, "Brother, I already have 47 on your head. What are you gonna do?" So, we seen that happen before, and I feel like it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough on Ant. They're gonna throw a lot of different mismatches on Ant. They're gonna throw KCP on him. They're gonna put Jamal Murray on him. They're gonna put Aaron Gordon on him some possessions. He's gonna see a lot of different looks defensively, and it's gonna be tough for him as well. And I think Cat has a good series though. I do believe Cat's gonna have a good series against the Nuggets. I don't think Jokic can guard him on the offensive side of the ball. I don't think they're going to put Aaron Gordon on him. Physically wise or mentally wise, I think Aaron Gordon's not going to be able to guard him either. But I think Cat has a good series, but I don't think it's going to be enough. So I got the Nuggets in 5.
Yeah, I'm not going to say too much about this series. I agree with you guys. Nuggets get these guys out of here in 5. Would have been a little interesting with Jaden McDaniels and Nasri, as you guys mentioned. But I'm just happy to see the Denver Nuggets back at full strength, man. The last time we saw these guys back at full strength was the bubble. And we all saw how Jamal Murray went off and how Nikola Jokic was playing crazy. And so I'm just glad to see Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. and Nikola Jokic all back on the same floor come postseason time, man. Because this team is a dangerous team, man. They're one of the contenders in the Western Conference. But obviously they're a little lucky on this side. Obviously they earned their right to play the Minnesota Timberwolves. Actually, I don't want to say they're lucky. It's not easy being the 1 seed in a tough Western Conference. So I'll give them that. They got these guys out of here in 5. But that wasn't the series I was talking about when I said that we have a dogfight in the Western Conference. Let's go ahead and move on to the more interesting series, man, between the 4 and 5 seeds. We have the Phoenix Suns, man, going up against the Los Angeles Clippers. Who we got?
Man, I only wish that Paul George was healthy for this series. It's looking like, based off reports, that Paul George is most likely to miss this entire first round, which is unfortunate because you'd like to see him healthy. The Clippers have this crazy injury bug. It's been plaguing them for a while now, but to preview this series, I think it's going to be Phoenix Suns in about 6. The only reason why I say 6 is because Kawhi Leonard, when it comes to the playoffs, he's as big as a playoff riser as any superstar that you can ever name. When it comes to the playoffs, this guy knows how to perform, and he's someone that's going to get to spots and he's going to score. But I just feel like with the amount of athletes that they have in Westbrook and Terrence Mann, and they have a lot of guys in Norman Powell and Batum and Covington and Zubac. They have a lot of contributors on that team. They have good depth as well. Mason Plumlee on the bench as well. I feel like they have a lot of guys that can come in and contribute. So it could lead to a couple series win. But ultimately, when you have 2 out of 3 of the best players on the court on one side versus Kawhi Leonard, I feel like that's just kind of unfair. It's going to be something where you have Kevin Durant, who's going to really be guarding him. You're going to probably put Nicholas Batum on him because you don't want Kawhi Leonard guarding KD. And then Devin Booker, who's going to be guarded by him? Probably someone like Terrence Mann or of the sort. So I just feel like those 2 as scoring options is just too much for the Clippers to handle. I like the Clippers' athleticism and their depth, but ultimately I like what the Phoenix Suns have in terms of their scores and who's on that side. So give me the Suns in about 6 in this series. If Paul George was here, man, I would be rocking with the Clippers any day of the week. But Paul George isn't here, and I got to go with the best scorer in the league and one of the best mid-range shooters in the league as well, in Devin Booker. So,
Wow. So I mean, no Paul George. That's definitely gonna affect my pick for sure. I thought he's not gonna be back.
yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's not looking like it, man.
I tried to clarify because
It's not looking like it, man.
Yeah, okay then. All right. So for this one, it would have been a dogfight if he was there, but like obviously, like with the perimeter scoring they got with KD, I'm a big Book guy, so seeing Book out there, he's gonna do his thing. Chris Paul, he's gonna be Chris Paul. I guess you can say whatever you want about him. Then they depend on him just to make his dunk finishes and everything. So as far as this series, I think it goes. I mean, obviously with the willpower of like Kawhi, this team goes as far as Kawhi could take them. So I think this series goes in 6. Suns is 6, but Kawhi just has those 2 good games where he's just really effective. And then the bench unit, like, do they start Norman Powell or no?
He comes off their bench.
I think they start Eric Gordon.
Eric Gordon. Oh, okay. Yeah. Then I'll be Norman Powell's.
And that's another guy that they have that can contribute. Yeah. So.
Well, to be honest, I think they should start Terrence Mann, but I don't know. This team just got so much, like they got so much depth. It's kind of a negative thing. I don't know. They're a weird team, but I'm gonna take the Suns at 6.
Yeah, man. Paul George not playing it's a big hit to this team, man. Especially against the Suns. I feel like this series with Paul George would have been a different case if he played. It would have been a different case. They would have gave the Suns fits. Put PG on Book, put Kawhi on KD. I'm not even worried about CPO. We know what type of player he is when it comes to playoffs. And he's another soft player as well. So those two guys, I feel like they got lucky that Paul George wasn't playing. Book's gonna I feel like Book's gonna have a phenomenal playoff series. I feel like KD's gonna come in. He's gonna go to war with Kawhi like we've seen in the past. They've been played against each other in the playoffs multiple times. They've been to war. But I think it goes. I feel like it's gonna go 7, just off the sheer willpower of Kawhi Leonard. I feel like this guy. We know what type of playoff performer he is and how he comes into the playoffs and plays, and the depth that they have with Norman Powell and guys like coming off the bench, Terrence Mann, even Bones Highland. Zubac playing a phenomenal role. Even guys I felt like Westbrook against CPO, he might have a phenomenal playoffs. Westbrook can turn the clock back a little bit, and they might have a chance to win. So guys like that can step up. Role players like that can step up. I feel like Clippers might have a chance, but just the star power that the Suns have with KD, Book, even throwing Ayton in there, it's gonna be a little too much. But I think the Suns go win in 7.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you in this one, Big H. I feel like the Suns. Obviously, we all know what type of power they're coming with. They're coming with KD and Book as a scoring option, so it's gonna be tough to stop. I feel like the recipe for the Clippers' success right now without Paul George just has to be their depth, man. They got to utilize their depth. They got to maximize it to the best of their abilities because that's really all they got. That's the edge that they have right now in this matchup against the Phoenix Suns. I feel like the Phoenix Suns are gonna have to play these guys heavy minutes. They're gonna have to play Book. They're gonna have to play KD and CP3 and DeAndre Ayton about 38 to 40 minutes. They're not. There's just not gonna be a lot of resting for these guys because you can't necessarily trust guys like Damian Lee and Landry Shamet to come off the bench and sustain leads for you. And I've already highlighted this before, so I feel like the Clippers, if their bench can come in here and just straight up dominate the game and just give Kawhi a chance whenever Kawhi's off the court, just give him a chance to to keep the ship afloat, until the captain comes back. And I think Kawhi, he's good enough to take both of these guys on between Book and KD. But I do agree with all of you guys though. And since we all made our picks, we all have Phoenix winning in either 6 or 7. With Paul George, how do we have this series going though? I feel like this series goes 7 out, but I'd give the Clippers the edge.
I'd give
Us-
the Clippers 7 as well.
Clippers 7 would be.
Without a doubt, it would have been 7. Suns. I'll still go with Suns.
Oh, you're still
But
going
You
Suns
still
with,
got time?
PG?
yeah, I'll still go with Suns. I ain't gonna lie, but it would have been a better showing for sure.
The thing about PG as well, man. I mean, playoff P, he don't perform in the playoffs. I feel like,
But then
and it might be
remember
right.
20. You got to give him 2021 though. He really showed himself.
I'm giving him 1 year in the last 6 years.
I mean, come on, man. That was more recent though. Come on, like
All it
I
takes
feel like
is
he,
one to turn it around, right?
yeah, he gets a lot of slack. The
I mean,
guy's a baller,
it does
man.
take
Yeah.
only one to turn it around. But at the same time, I feel like that guy gets into his head a lot. He listens to a lot of the social media stuff. I feel like he's one of those players that tune into the what people say about him, and he kind of gets into his head about that stuff. But even with PG though, I Clippers 7. I would have had Clippers at 7.
Hey man, speaking of PG, man, he's just like us. He's got a podcast now, man. I don't know what it's called. I think it's called Podcast P.
Podcast P.
Podcast P, man. He's just like us, man. But yeah, we all got the Suns winning this series. Let's go ahead and move on to the fastest pace series of the Western Conference between these two teams, man. We have the Sacramento Kings playing the Golden State Warriors, man, the reigning champs. Who do we got?
I got the Warriors in 6 in this matchup. I feel like this is going to be a chess match. You got Mike Brown, a former assistant coach of the Warriors from 2016 to 2022, going up against his former head coach and Steve Kerr. It's going to be a battle of adjustments. It's going to be a huge chess match between two elite offenses. And the Warriors, the offenses wouldn't suggest that they've been elite this year, but when they have their best starting lineup out there, they're as good as anybody in basketball. And so this is going to be a match versus adjustments. Who's gonna fold first in that category? And I feel like the Warriors, they do a great job of exploiting holes in. One guy that they're gonna definitely try to go after is Sabonis. He's a guy who struggles versus athleticism and length, and he's a very brute force type of guy. But when you're going up against a guy like Kevon Looney, who's an immovable brick, and you have a guy in Draymond Green next to him, it's going to be tough. in that type of series, and it's going to be interesting to see how the Kings adjust to that matchup. But at the same time, on the other end, they have the best fourth quarter basketball player in the league. A guy who, when it comes to the fourth quarter, he's fearless, and that's something that always translates to basketball. When you're able to show up in high stakes basketball, I know regular season fourth quarters aren't as big as playoff basketball, but they're still huge. When you're able to really show up when the margins are tight, I feel like that translates really well. And De'Aaron Fox is definitely going to be someone that has a huge series, and it's going to be tough trying to guard someone that quick. Andrew Wiggins, he does a great job against wings, but I'm interested to see how he's going to do against such a speedy point guard in De'Aaron Fox. But ultimately, I got the Warriors in 6 because they have the best player on the floor, and he's going to be, and his type of play style is one that's going to exploit everybody's weaknesses, and someone like Sabonis is going to be unplayable, which in turn kind of hurts their offense. So give me the Warriors in 6.
Yeah, this series is this one got my eye. It got my eye because I'm watching a few players that and I'm like, there's a lot of people I watch during the playoffs that I'm looking at them through a microscope. And one guy, his name is Domantas Sabonis. Yes, I'm gonna say the full name because I'm watching you. I am watching you every single move. And this guy is unplayable in the playoffs. Let me tell you why. Because it's a fast-paced game, and the way he plays is, hey, I'm gonna dribble handoff. Oh, I'm gonna look at the cutter. I'm gonna dime it off. Nah, you need to space the floor out and let Fox do his thing, let Monk do his thing, and that's where this team thrives at, and he hurts them on that. So, thus, my conclusion on that is he's unplayable in the playoffs. Furthermore, I feel like the Warriors are definitely intact and ready to go for their championship run. They got the guys. They're getting Wiggins back. Curry's obviously, without a doubt, one of the best players in the league. Obviously, Clay can still shoot that. He shot like 40 on like extremely great. He shot with great efficiency and he's shooting a lot too. So you got to salute him out. He gets a lot of slack, but he shot well this year. And the Warriors winning at 6, man. But obviously, Fox is a great young player. I'm excited to see him play in a playoff stretch. So I'm excited to see him play.
Man, shout out Sacramento for making the playoffs after, 17 years. Let's just speak about that. 17 years, it's a long time coming for a team to make the playoffs. Long time coming, and they're back in the mix, sitting at the third seed. They play phenomenal this season. Just want to, clap it up for them. They did good, but man, ultimately this series is going to be fun. I feel like this series, Golden State got some competition this first round. They're going to have some fun, they're going to have to figure out what they got to do. And I think, with the experience and Curry leading the way with Draymond's experience as well. I got the Warriors in 6, but I feel like it's going to be a fun series. Guys like Kyle Korver, Klay Thompson, my bad. He got to have to show up on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. Guys like Jordan Poole, all of his numbers have been down since last year, except the scoring. His shooting numbers, his 3-point percentage, his free throw numbers, a lot of it's been down. So I feel like he got to come back into the mix and he got to show up like what he did last year in the playoffs and come in, be aggressive and not settle for shots like he does a lot. So, those type of guys, Draymond's going to be a big factor. Guys like Wiggins, he's coming back. This was his first game in how long? It's going to be first game in almost a month and a half, 2 months.
Month and a half.
He's been out for a minute, so it's gonna take some time for him to get in that groove. I don't see Wiggins really falling off defensively like that. I feel like he's gonna be there consistently on the defensive side of the ball, but it might take some time for him to get used to the offense. They picked up GP Gary Payne's back on the squad, another great defender. So guys like that are gonna feel the rolling, and I feel like the young stars and Sacramento, Fox, Malik Monk, so even Sabonis part of it, they're gonna have to play phenomenal every single game. They can't take a day off if they want to compete and have a chance against these guys. Like if Fox has one bad game, it's over. Malik Monk doesn't show up every game, it's gonna be bad for them. Sabonis having a bad game, it's gonna be over. These guys have to consistently be ready to show up. Guys like Kevin Huerter, guys like Keegan Murray, guys like Davion Mitchell, Harrison Barnes, they're gonna have to show up as well. So I feel like for the Kings, one of the best offensive ratings, just go, 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 go. We're not going to get the rebound. Push that pace, attack, attack, attack. We've seen Fox in the fourth quarter as one of the best fourth quarter clutch players that we've seen this year. Is probably the best, and I expect him to go off against his Warriors defense. I don't think guys like Curry, Clay, Jordan Poole, they can't stick with him. Even Wiggins, I feel like he's too fast for Wiggins. So it's going to be tough for the Warriors on the defensive side of the ball to handle this explosive backcourt that they have, and it's going to be a fun series. But ultimately, the experience, Curry, one of the best players in the league, and just having guys like Draymond and Clay being there, being in the playoffs so much, they're gonna just come out winning 6. So I expect a fun series.
Yeah, man, like the beam, man, like the beam. Sacramento, man, it's up to you. When do you want to light the beam with? Is it game 1? Is it gonna be game 2? Because I don't have it going any further than 5. I got the Warriors coming out and dominating this series, whether they want to take it from the jump or kind of start off a little slow and kind of just pick it up for the rest of the 4 games. But the Sacramento Kings, man, they won't be doing too much lighting the beam for the rest of the season. Yeah, they're good. I'm just gonna give them one more in this first round. I just feel like like I've mentioned this entire season, the experience is gonna give these guys the edge, and simply because I just feel like it's like you guys have highlighted, Sabonis is gonna be a huge problem in this series, man. Because I feel like when you throw him into high pick and roll situations with Steph and Draymond, like, and he's not necessarily stepping up high to stop Steph's 3-pointer, and even if he does, it's a blow by for Steph. And even if they try to double him, it's a dump off to Draymond Green. Draymond can make a play. We all know how great of a facilitator he is, but that's just going to be a huge problem for this team, man. But this series is going to be extremely fast. Like, if you take your eyes off the screen, a team's going to have already been scored. A bucket's already been scored. Like, Kings are going to score. Warriors are going to score at a high fast pace. It's just going to be a lot to keep up with. But at the end of the day, I feel like the reigning champs, they figure this thing out, and they're gearing up for this dogfight right now, man. They know they got to go through a lot of teams to reach the ultimate goal, and that's winning an NBA championship. And they're my pick, and I feel like they have the tools. They're getting the guys back. They've been healthy for the last month, and they got the coaching, they got everything ready to go, man. And there's not a player in the league that I trust more in the NBA playoffs other than Steph Curry, man. Because I know that when the playoffs come around, he takes his game up to another level, just like a lot of these other superstars in this league. So I got the Warriors getting these guys out of here in 5 games. It's gonna be an interesting 5 games though. But I do hear you guys when you guys say 6. It could go 6, but I'm gonna go ahead and be a little bit edgy here. I'm gonna go 5. So give me that, and then let's go ahead and talk about a series that I feel like that could go either way between these two teams, man. We got the Memphis Grizzlies at the number 2 seed going up against the Los Angeles Lakers, man. The Lakers are back in the playoffs. Who do we got?
I have the Grizzlies in 7 in this series.
Yeah.
My thing about the Grizzlies is I would have had them in 6 if they were healthy. In terms of having Brandon Clark and Steven Adams, because that's a big drop off when Jaren Jackson Jr. sits. But the reason why is I feel like people think this is the 2020 Lakers. Like, I feel like people are sitting down there thinking this is a team that has that same level of flexibility with their lineups, that has the same level of guard play depth that championship roster has, and it just does not. We just saw against the Timberwolves how trash D'Angelo Russell was, how bad Malik Beasley was, and Vanderbilt how terrible he was offensively. When those guys aren't playable, what does the offense look like? Are you really going to be relying on Dennis Schroeder to give you 21 points? I don't think that's a consistent option to have. Are you really going to be relying on Rui Hachimura to give you contribution consistently? He has been better as of recently, but if Vanderbilt's unplayable, or let's say he does play, Vanderbilt's on the floor, Jaren Jackson is going to absolutely destroy the Los Angeles Lakers. If Vanderbilt shares the court with Anthony Davis, Jaren Jackson is going to just dominate the Lakers. The reason why is he's not going to guard Vanderbilt. He's just literally going to roam off Vanderbilt, and he's going to kill anybody that comes to the rim. And this guy's the defensive player of the year, in my opinion, this year. He's looking like he's going to be the favorite. But if this guy's able to roam off Vanderbilt, then they're just going to get dominated on that side of the floor, on both sides of the floor in reality. And then, of course, John Morant. If Vanderbilt sits, who's going to be guarding John Morant? I don't want to hear Dennis Schroeder is going to be guarding John Morant, because that's just not going to happen. He's not going to be able to stop John Morant. I just feel like in terms of physicality, if there's one team that can to match the level of physicality that the Lakers have, it's 100% the Memphis Grizzlies. I feel like their lack of point of attack defense at the guard level, I just don't feel like they have enough guard depth or even guards to be able to stop them. Malik Beasley, if he's not hitting shots, he's unplayable in the series. D'Lo, we literally seen him against a worse Memphis squad last year and how he looked. He's unable to deal with physicality. Vanderbilt, he's going to get run off the floor if he's unable to contribute anything offensively. And I just like Memphis in this matchup. I do think that there's question marks about Jaren Jackson Jr.'s foul trouble and the drop off from their bigs on their lineup. But I like their depth. I like Luke Kennard. I like Santi Aldama. They have probably the best backup point guard in the league, and Tyus Jones. They have a lot of good pieces on this roster. And then Desmond Bane, to me, is the X factor for this team. I just don't think someone like Austin Reeves is going to be able to stop Desmond Bane. I mean, last year we saw Desmond Bane, even with a back injury, I think he shot almost 49% on 9 attempts from 3. last year. So, I mean, I like the Grizzlies in this matchup. So, give me them in 7.
It's a parade inside my city. Yeah. What are y'all talking about, man? Give me John. Give me John 6. What? I think LeBron gets like good 2, like loosely weird wins, but John them they lock it in. They're getting them out of there in 6, man. I know they're starting Xavier Tillman. They're a little bit small, but just the fact that they have the superstar, we gotta stop living in old times. That guy LeBron it's over, man. He's washed, as they say. Anthony Davis, obviously, he's probably the X factor for them to probably get it to 7, but I feel like John's gonna be the deciding factor of them actually like finalizing the series. So obviously, I'm gonna take this is a layup here. Give me the Grizzlies at 6, without a doubt.
Yeah, I'm hearing Luke Kennard, and Santi Aldama is going to be factors. Xavier Charles Tillman is going to be a factor. And guys like that are going to be factors. Dylan Brooks.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious because this guy's gonna literally mention Austin Reeves right after. Like, are we serious here?
I mean, Austin Reeves did drop 50 on Desmond Bain head.
But that's the same thing. Luke Kennard, Austin Reeves. That's the same thing. Different front.
It's literally flirting. This is elite. This is an elite sharpshooter. Why would I not name? Why would I not name an elite sharpshooter?
Desmond Bain though. Desmond Bain's a hooper. He's one of the hoopers on that team. But all the Xavier Charles Tillman, guys like Santi Aldama, those are guys that are
basketball players. Good basketball players.
AD with one leg is gonna drop 40 on his head. Jaren Jackson offensively is a horrible player.
A guy that this guy's living in last year, bro. This guy's literally
he got better. He got better. He got better. He got better.
We're living in last year. He's litty.
When John was out. When LeBron was out, AD was out, LeBron was out, AD was out.
Why are we taking regular season matchup serious, bro? What this play of basketball? This play of basketball.
We gonna cook him. We've seen LeBron in the playoffs. We know AD's resume in the playoffs. We don't know what John Desmond Bain did.
Let me ask you this one thing.
Charles Tillman, that guy from X.
I got a question.
That's who your center is?
I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
When Ja took his mental break, obviously he was going through some stuff at the time. Did JJ
not just say his gun? The gun.
He took let's not say that. He took a mental break.
He was trying to be a gang member, flexing his gun on IG. Let's say that. None of that,
Let's be professional
here.
None
of that other stuff, man.
He took a mental break.
Quote unquote mental health break. Let's carry on.
Quote unquote.
My question is,
take a break.
Let me ask my question, man. Did JJJ not improve his offense once he took that break? Did he not improve his offense?
Can't respect the guy that throws his ass out every 3. That's how he shoots.
We're going to see you out of 6, man. All right, bet.
Lakers in 6. We're going to put some money on that, too, after this call. Promise. I ain't got to speak.
Funny thing is, last 20 games, Jaren Jackson's been averaging 23. Let's just keep that in mind.
Yeah, and AD since All-Star break been averaging 27 and 12.
Just play. All I'm saying is put Vanderbilt on the court. Let Vanderbilt be on the court.
You're going to bring up Saint T on Dom. I can't pronounce it.
No, he's a good No, I'm saying is literally, I'm saying who's going to guard John Morant? Just answer that question.
Who's going to guard LeBron? Who's going to guard LeBron?
No, Dylan Brooks, obviously. What? What's the guy asking me?
Dylan Brooks going to guard LeBron now?
Yes.
Dylan Brooks is not LeBron?
He's going to guard LeBron. You're asking me. I'm telling you who's going to guard. He doesn't have to stop him. He's gonna listen. We're gonna make Demetrius the game of basketball. The game of basketball.
Hey, he doesn't have to stop him. He has to frustrate him.
Stop him. He just literally has to try his best to bother LeBron James. That is Dylan Brooks' job. I'm saying is who's gonna.
We got 5 players on the court to stop Ja. Like you said, it's a game of basketball. We got 5 starting lineups.
No, I'm saying Dylan Brooks is a capable defender.
Vanderbilt, Reeves. We got 5 players on the court to stop Ja.
Listen, I'm saying who's gonna be in front of Ja to even stop and get to a paint.
Hey, Jaren Jackson 6'9". They're gonna play a 6'9" and under lineup with a guy from X-Men named.
Wait, brother! Did you say Jaren Jackson 6'9"? The guy's damn near 7 foot. You know that, right? 7'3", 7'3" wingspan. He's 6'11". He's 6'11". He's 6'11". Almost a damn near 7 foot.
Every game Jaren Jackson played against AD, he got cooked this year. It wasn't even fair. He got abused by AD. He got abused. With Westbrook
you know what's funny?
Westbrook is no different than Vanderbilt.
You know what's funny?
Westbrook is no different than Vanderbilt.
No, that's
Westbrook's
not. That's
no
not the
different
same
than
thing.
Vanderbilt.
It's
They
because
left
I'm
Westbrook.
I'm
Hold on,
saying
what's funny though? What's funny though? What's
I'm
funny
saying
though?
is who's gonna beat the point of attack defender on John Morant? That's my question. You cannot answer that. Who's gonna be in front of John Morant?
Doc can get his. He can get his. We know John's
Oh,
gonna
now
get
he can
his.
get his. Now he can get
We
his.
know Doc can get his. He's gonna eat. Yes, but everybody else on the team is
No,
not gonna
it's
eat.
not.
Dylan
It's not a
Brooks,
it's not a matter of get his.
Dylan
Who's
Brooks,
gonna be
we're
in
gonna clamp
front
him.
of him?
Darren Jackson, we're gonna clamp him. Desmond Bane's gonna
Absolutely
have
not.
an all right game here and there, but we're gonna clamp him. Let Ja go get his 40 every game.
I'll give you this. I don't think you're gonna clap JJJ, but he might get in foul trouble. That's like his
That's a quick
that's
thing.
his problem.
At
Yeah.
least you know.
I'll give you that.
JJJ.
I'll give you that.
Foul trouble's where it
Clamping
comes.
JJJ. I ain't worried about Jaren Jackson offense, bro. We spoke about this early on in the year. I ain't worried about Jaren Jackson offense.
But his offense is
At all.
improved though, so it doesn't make
At
any
all.
sense.
At all.
His
At
offense
all.
actually
With
better
Ja
now.
back
So
on the
Big
court,
H,
with
you're
Ja back on
extremely
the court,
confident in this series, right? Guns blazing, like
100%
eyebrow
confident.
raising.
I've been saying, give me Memphis for 6 months. I want Memphis. I want Memphis. We got
All
Memphis.
right.
He's excited.
Yeah, he really. Hey,
Hell.
we're all on this call, man. He really wants Memphis, man. He really wanted
Wait,
Memphis.
so
told
it's
you I want
Lakers
Memphis.
in how many games?
6.
You got him getting out of there in 6. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. To make my pick, man, Big H, we're not on the same side always, but I believe in this series it's only right that we stay on the same side. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the Lakers in this series, simply because one, in our preseason predictions, when we ranked the best duos in the Western Conference, I was one of those guys that were extremely high on guys like Anthony Davis and LeBron James, and it's nice to have these two guys back in the postseason. And it's been a while since we've seen these guys, come into the postseason healthy. The last time they were able to come into the postseason healthy, their season ended up in a championship, as we all remember. Obviously they came into the playoffs the year after that, but AD was banged up, wasn't able to go against the Suns. And then obviously Solomon Hill injuring LeBron's ankle in late March. Not enough time for LeBron to recover and get back out there on the court 100%, but he tried giving it his all, but at 80%, 60%. But I trust those guys, man. I trust AD. I trust LeBron James in the postseason. That's why I was so high on them. And in this situation, I can't go against them because this is AD and LeBron we're talking about. If there's any guy other than Steph Curry, I'm going LeBron, and obviously AD, who could be a co-star to LeBron, who has the experience of being a champion, and going far in the postseason, playing in hostile environments. These guys know what it takes to win, and so that's my first point. And then number 2 is just the fact that the game of basketball, the game of playoff basketball is it's a slow paced game sometimes for some teams. Obviously it's just not going to be always like the Sacramento Kings and the Golden State Warriors, where these two teams are going to be running up and down the court extremely fast. Like, you got to play half court. You got to have a half court offense in the playoffs. You can't the up and down, fast break, fast paced style of basketball. It's gone when it comes down to the playoffs, man. You got to be able to run your sets and get your guys opportunities to get some buckets. And I feel like, that's where the Memphis Grizzlies kind of struggle, man, in the half court. These guys are kind of like that.
Especially without Steven Adams.
So
half court offense kind of tanked without Steven Adams.
They're just Brandon Clark and Steven Adams.
It's just going to be tough. And then on top of the fact that they're not a good half court offense team, that's where I kind of give the Lakers the edge, man, because I can trust LeBron James running an offense in the half court. We know how his offense works. You put LeBron James and you surround him with shooters, kind of run the pick and roll with him and AD and try to get the best look possible. I can trust that. But for the Memphis Grizzlies, I can't necessarily trust that, man, because obviously I know how special of a player Ja is. We all know how special of a player he is. He's going to do his thing. And I'm not too sure, Big H, what you're talking about. This guy's going to dominate the series from start to finish. I'm sorry. There's just no way, this guy's going to have a bad game whatsoever. He's going to do his thing. But the thing is, I hear you, though. You let Ja cook because you can't necessarily do anything to stop him. Right? But you got to take away all of the other options. And we've seen that in the postseason last year when they ran into the Golden State Warriors, where early on in the series before Ja got injured, it was just Ja doing his thing and nobody else really had the opportunity, or nobody really just came along with them. And that's where I feel like the struggles are going to start for the Memphis Grizzlies.
My only point against that is I feel like the Warriors have a lot better point of attack defenders. Like, they have Wiggins, they had Gary Payton Jr., that Klay Thompson. They have a bunch of guys out there that can switch out into the perimeter. I feel like the Lakers don't really have guards that play defense. That's my only thing. I feel like if we're talking about elite perimeter defenders on Lakers, after Vanderbilt, who's the next best defender on that Lakers team outside?
I don't know. You go ask Ant why he shot 3 for 19 the other day.
He was trash. He that doesn't really explain. Doesn't really explain much. And plus he had a shoulder cramp. I mean, come on, man.
The shoulder injury too now.
I agree though. It's not the defenders that the Warriors got. It doesn't necessarily match up with the defenders what the Lakers got. But I feel like obviously ever since the trade deadline, man, the Lakers have been a great team defensively. So I feel like if these guys can get the rotation right, they can lock in on that side of the ball. So it's just not. It's their defense is not going to be as effective as what the Warriors were against the Memphis Grizzlies, but I feel like it's going to be pretty damn good. And losing, like Big H mentioned just now, losing guys like Steven Adams, losing guys like Brandon Clark, those are bodies, man. You got to have some bodies when you go up against a guy like Anthony Davis, man. Obviously Jaren Jackson, we gave him a shot for Defensive Player of the Year, and we talked about how the season he had on the defensive side of the ball. But Bandit's right, man. The only thing that I have a question mark about him is his foul trouble. Can he stay on the floor for 35 to 37 minutes in the postseason? Can he do that? Like, can he really be effective on both sides of the ball without getting in foul trouble? And we just haven't seen that yet. And I feel like if Jaren Jackson is not on the floor to guard Anthony Davis, who are you putting on him? Are you gonna put Xavier Tillman on him? Like, come on now, that's food. Like, AD's gonna have himself a field day, and Dylan Brooks, his job is he can't stop LeBron. They don't have a guy that can stop LeBron. They just got a guy that can bother LeBron, kind of get in his head, get under his skin. But LeBron's been here before, man. So I feel like Dylan Brooks gonna try his hardest. He's gonna try to play dirty a little bit, but at the end of the day, this is LeBron James we're talking about. He's gonna overcome all of that. And then you guys talked about Desmond Bane, Big H. I didn't mention the little this in the shot you threw at Klay Thompson, calling him Kyle Korver. In the last predictions when we talked about the Warriors and stuff like that. I didn't like that, but this Desmond Bane guy, everyone was giving him a shot to be better than Klay Thompson all the last year and all of this year. He's gonna have to prove it to me now. You guys said he was hurt last year in that second round. He has the opportunity to rewrite that wrong.
Sure.
He has the opportunity now to prove to me that he's a top shooting guard in this league, or if he's better than just Klay Thompson. He don't gotta be a top shooting guard, just be a better shooting guard than Klay Thompson. If he does that, and he has to do that in this series, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like he's gonna have to be a guy that's the X factor for this Memphis Grizzlies team. And I just feel like at the end of the day, the game plan for the Memphis Grizzlies, man, is pretty simple. They gotta get Ja going, and they gotta play their pace of basketball. But if the Memphis Grizzlies are able to win this series, it just goes to show that they learned from their mistakes last year. Because of course we can go back to that Timberwolves series where they gifted the Timberwolves a lot of those games, but the Timberwolves were just a dumb and young franchise, just to gift those games right back to them. So it's just like that series could have gone either way, but they ran into the reigning champs, and unfortunately, when you give games to a franchise like that, they're going to take it and run with it. So I feel like the Lakers are kind of like the same like the Warriors, where if you gift them a game or two, they're not going to look back, man. They're going to take that and hound on the opportunity. So go ahead and give me the Lakers to win this one. I think this series goes the distance. It's going to be a 7-game series. So I feel like, LeBron and AD put on and hopefully Darwin Ham doesn't really change the rotations much, and kind of just plays the right guys. And LeBron James and AD gonna do their thing and coast into the second round, man. We're gonna see a nice little matchup between Golden State and the Los Angeles Lakers. I'm hoping for it, man. I'm trying to see that. I ain't trying to see Memphis again, because the Warriors gonna get him out of there real quick. But yeah, man, that pretty much wraps up our round 1 playoff predictions. If you go to our Instagram page at New Media Podcast, you'll be able to see all of our playoff predictions. We posted it all on Insta and Twitter and stuff like that, so you'll be able to see who we got, each and every round, and who we're crowning champion at the end of the season. But now we got that out of the way, man. I feel like it's time we get into which players have the most to gain from winning an NBA championship this year.
Oof, there's a lot of guys. I feel like it kind of coincides with some of the guys that we had on our list of players that are under the most pressure, but just slightly differs. I feel like Chris Paul and James Harden gained the most from winning a championship. I have those two specifically. There were two guys that we highlighted earlier in the season because one, both of them, they have been to the finals. James Harden when he was younger, Chris Paul versus the Milwaukee Bucks a couple years back, and these two guys, they're getting up there in age. James Harden is no longer the superstar that he once was. He's obviously still an all-star, a really good basketball player, but he's been to a couple teams now. He's been with Brooklyn. He got hurt. He missed his chance to win a championship. He wanted to come to Philly to compete for one, and now he's teamed up with an MVP level player, a guy who isn't going to be an MVP. And it's looking like it's going to be now or never for James Harden. I feel like he has a couple or 3 more seasons left into him before his body really starts breaking down. And the same thing applies for Chris Paul. I feel like it's even sooner for him in terms of where his body is at. And now he has an opportunity to play with one of the greatest scorers ever and play with one of the top young shooting guards in this entire league, in Devin Booker. And this is an opportunity to capitalize. So these two guys, they have a lot to gain with winning a championship this season. So
for me, I mean, I think it's quite simple. I agree with you on those two, James Harden and CP3, due to legacy purposes. If they get that ring, that kind of sparks the conversation of them. Obviously, they're already all-time players, but if they get that little boost of having the championship, that levels their resume. But for me, I'm gonna go with the player that's already proven. But just this added boost would be like, oh, okay, yeah, he's on another another stratosphere. That's Steph Curry. So if he gets that 5, you can't tell him. You can't tell him nothing. So I mean, yeah, as simple as that. So if Curry gets that 5, that sparks a whole different conversation. So definitely going with him.
Yeah, I'm with you on there. I'd be with CP3 and Harden having the most to gain from this. Been in the league for a while, especially CPO. Being so close to a ring with the Suns early on. Like, was it like two years ago against the Bucks? Him, being there, getting that opportunity, but he couldn't fulfill his dream. I feel like he has a lot. He has a lot to gain from them. Same as Harden. I feel like he has a lot to gain. Being in a championship at a young age and losing to the Heat back in the day, he experienced that, and then just being a phenomenal player, but not making it out, making it to the finals. He's been close with Houston, and the last couple of years, a lot of injuries, a lot of stuff going on with him gaining some weight, him leaving team to team, going to the Nets and now coming to Philadelphia. He's been around a lot, so I feel like he has a lot to gain from this championship. And there's a couple other guys like Curry. If he gets that 5th championship, where does it set him in the all-time greats? We already put him in our top 10, but we discussed him with the 4th ring. Is he close to Kobe, or is he up there with LeBron yet? But if he gets this 5th ring, there's going to be a lot of uncomfortable conversations throwing him in that top 5, and people are going to be mad saying, "Oh, this and that." But he's going to have to gain some respect if he gets that 5th ring, and people are going to have to listen to those conversations. 2 other guys, man. One guy, Embiid, what does it say if he wins the championship this year? Where can it solidify him? Him never being past the second round. Him being in the league 9 years and not being able to get past the second round, but he can gain a lot from this championship. And another guy I see right now, Jokic. The last 2 years winning MVP, but not having a fully healthy team in the playoffs. This year being again one of the best players, top 2 in MVP votes. Might not win the MVP, but what does it solidify for him getting this MVP getting this finals win with 2 MVP? He can gain a lot from it too. So those are the couple guys I have, but mainly CP3 and Harden. I feel like they gain a lot from it.
I hear you guys, man. You guys make some interesting points for those guys. But I feel like, when it comes down to the most to gain from winning a ring this year, man, the players that I believe, have the most to gain from winning an NBA championship this year are one, being Steph Curry. I'm gonna agree with you guys on that one. I believe Steph has a lot to gain from this ring, simply because, I feel like the ring last year solidified him a spot in the top 10 greatest players of all time discussion, right? So, he was always on the edge, and people always made comments about him not necessarily having a finals MVP under his resume. And they gave him a lot of slack for it. So, with him solidifying his season last year with the ring and the finals MVP without Kevin Durant, obviously it boosted his status for being a top 10 player of all time. And I feel like with another championship ring and another NBA finals MVP, I feel like there's just gonna, like Big H mentioned it, there's gonna be a lot of uncomfortable discussions that are gonna have to be held in terms of Steph Curry and where he ranks amongst the best of the best. Because right now I probably have Steph Curry around my 6 or 7 spot, on the outside of the 5, on the outside looking in on the top 5. But I feel like if he gets number 5, man, it's a completely different conversation we're having. Somebody's gonna have to take the boot, and I'm not too sure who's going to be, but it's going to be some uncomfortable discussions. And then number 2, I got LeBron James himself, the GOAT. I feel like a ring for LeBron James now, at his age in his 20th year, on this Lakers franchise, I feel like, it would do wonders for the GOAT debate. It would do wonders for the GOAT conversation. I feel like if LeBron James goes through the gauntlet where he comes into the playoffs as a 7th seed and he knocks off the Memphis Grizzlies, and he plays the Golden State Warriors and knocks off them, and then he goes to the Western Conference Finals and knocks off the Phoenix Suns, and then he goes to the finals and he knocks off the Bucks or the Celtics, I feel like there's no better case for LeBron James to solidify himself as the greatest player of all time, especially in a season where he surpassed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on the all-time scoring list. So I feel like, LeBron James has a lot to gain from winning an NBA championship, and it would solidify his entire career. Not that his career is not already solidified as it is, like he's already stamped in who he is and stuff like that. But like when we talk about this debate between who's the greatest player of all time between him and Michael Jordan, we always give Jordan the edge because of the rings and the 6 finals MVPs and the undefeated, finals and being undefeated in the finals. I feel like if LeBron James, delivers 2 championship rings in a span of what is it, 4 years for the Los Angeles Lakers, I feel like the discussion might just be over right then and there. A lot of people are gonna have to crown LeBron James as the GOAT, and obviously a lot of people go back and forth on this debate, and old heads got LeBron, old heads got Michael Jordan, and, the newer cats got LeBron because they grew up watching him and stuff like that. But I feel like LeBron James, he's one of those guys that have the most to gain from winning this championship. Joel Embiid, I do hear you, Big H. I feel like if a ring for him would change the narrative completely. Obviously not being the playoff performer and all of his playoff shortcomings, it'd all be forgotten with this championship ring. Simply like the same way we viewed Giannis, where he was a great player in this league early on. Once he figured it out, but he was unable to get over the hump and stuff like that. And then once he did it, we don't necessarily talk about him, getting bounced in the first round and the second round against the Miami Heat in the bubble and stuff like that. Like this guy's already solidified it as one of the greatest players of all time. He's somewhere in that top 20, and I feel like a ring for him would push him into that top 15 discussion. I feel like when we look at Giannis's resume as it is right now, I can't lie, man. I think he's probably around, what is it, like 27, 28 right now, going on closer to 30. He's got himself a nice resume, man. And we know how many years he's got left in this league. He's probably got a good 6 to 8 years left. So he's able to add a lot, to that resume. He might just enter himself into the top 5 or top 10 discussion, in 6 to 8 years time. So, but the one player that I'm not too sure how you guys feel about him in this situation, but it's Kevin Durant. Do you guys feel like he has the most to gain from, winning a ring without Steph Curry on this Phoenix Suns team?
He has a lot to gain just because
I feel like
finally silences that whole he can't win without Steph Curry narrative right there. If he wins that, then I think people are gonna really give Kevin Durant his like respect, where they're gonna be like, he finally won a ring without Steph Curry. So that's always been something that's been against Kevin Durant, him not being able to win a championship without Steph Curry. So he'd have a lot to gain from this.
I feel like the teams that he's been on, he's never like the teams he's been on, bro. They always have superstars. They always have star players on it with him, And for him to go from OKC with Westbrook and that complete team that they had choking that 3-1 lead to the Warriors, and then coming to the Warriors after that, and then the Warriors winning a ring when he goes to the Nets, and now he's on the Suns. And it's like, if he loses with the Suns to the Nuggets in the second round, what does it say about KD? Are those rings, mainly Golden State's, they want it for him basically, and he hasn't done anything outside of that? It shows a lot. I feel like, him losing, it shows like, hey, this guy really can't win by himself, or he needed the Warriors to win. But if he does win another ring with the Suns, I feel like he has a lot to gain. People are, a lot of people do put him top 15, but skill wise, talent wise, the guy's one of the best players to touch the court, especially scoring wise. He's probably the best scorer to ever touch the court. And if he does get this ring, some conversation, some stories might switch up. It might be different for him. So I do see him. He has a lot to gain from this. What do you think,
Yeah,
Henry?
I'm gritted right now because I got an interesting take on this. I'm not gonna lie. So if this guy bus rides this chip, it doesn't mean anything to him. I'm not gonna lie. But if he has to win a Finals MVP for this stretch, say if obviously it's a possibility this could happen. Like if D Book wins Finals MVP, this chip does not mean a thing. This guy's gonna have to win Finals MVP to solidify himself and be that guy. I know he won it with the Warriors and all that, but for this chip, he has to win Finals MVP for me to be like, okay, yes, KD, you got it. And hey, after last year, he's on a microscope for me. I'm watching him. I'm gonna just let that be known.
Yeah, I feel like I do agree with you though, Bandit. I think Kevin Durant, he's got to be the bus driver in this spot, and I do think he has good enough. He has a lot to gain from winning this championship with Phoenix, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like him going to another super team. So he's got to really assert his dominance on this team. And it's going to be really tough when you got a bucket getter like D Book on him, but running alongside him. So. But yeah, I mean, that pretty much wraps up who we got, the guys that are under the most pressure to win a championship. Now let's go ahead and move on to the coaches of the league. What coaches are under the most pressure to win a championship in this postseason?
This one
Or
was
actually,
a little bit tough.
let me reword this question. Actually, it's more so, what coaches are under the most pressure in this postseason?
I want to say,
I already know who it is.
I want to say,
I know what I'm saying.
I want to say, one is Doc Rivers for me. I want to say two. Like if I had to say my top three would be Doc Rivers, Michael Malone, and Monty Williams. I feel like those are my top three for coaches under pressure. Doc Rivers, obviously, I think that's self-explanatory. I mean, he has a history for choking. I mean, this guy, I've never seen somebody ride out one ring for this long. His reputation built off of that. You know, he's coached multiple Clippers teams where they've choked, got bounced out. And then of course, the Sixers team now. I feel like Doc Rivers, he's at the literally at the forefront of this team, and I feel like if they don't perform to expectations this offseason, I think he's gonna be this postseason. He's gonna be gone in this offseason. Michael Malone, now that he has a roster, there's no excuses. He's been under fire this year for being a Jokic merchant in reality, for Jokic being able to carry that team and putting him in positions to win. There's gonna be a lot of question marks about him because he has a roster now. And Monty Williams, just because they were in the finals, and then they lost at the finals, and then next year they're a 60+ win team, and then they lost in Game 7, a brutal way to Dallas, and now they have another great team. I feel like he's under a lot of pressure to perform with this team that he has. So those are the coaches that I believe are under the most pressure.
For me, it's quite simple. It's Doc Rivers. To get bounced out in the second round, what's it called? Just literally like have a disgusting showing against my Miami Heat last year, and then if this year, if he doesn't solidify himself and really take this team over the hump, like this is the guy you bring in to kind of potentially do that. So if he doesn't do that, that's a bit alarming. So I feel like it's flat out just him. He's the one that's like you're under a microscope. You're on the hot seat. Like every game matters to you. So you better coach your ass off. And like like people are not hitting shots, sub them out. If Tobias Harris is missing like 20 shots, take them out. Like this is your call. Make yourself be known. Like Doc Rivers, man, you gotta start coaching, man.
Yeah, I feel like I'd be hitting on point. Doc, Mike Malone, and then the last two that I'm gonna throw in is gonna be Mike. I can't pronounce his last name.
Budenholzer?
Milwaukee coach. Mike Budenholzer and Monty Williams. I feel like the Bucks. They've been named one of the best teams in the NBA the last 4 to 5 years. I know he got one ring so far, but a lot of people expect him. A lot of people expect the Bucks every single year to go back to the finals. I feel like it's a little bit disappointing that they haven't been back to the finals ever since that win. And I feel like this year with the team they have with Drew Holiday hooping, with Giannis hooping, with Brook Lopez hooping, with Bobby Portis, Grayson Allen, a lot of these guys hooping. I feel like it's their time to come back to the finals and win another chip. Last year they lost to Boston. Am I correct? The year before they lost to.
The year before is their ring.
Yeah,
Oh, the year before the ring.
they went crazy. Yeah,
The year before that was what? They lost to Miami before the ring and
2020.
pretty sure
But 2021 though, Budenholzer was in the hot seat though. Like every game mattered
was in
to
the
him.
hot seat. Yeah,
He
it
was,
mattered.
yeah.
I don't know.
They were trying to get him out of there.
I don't think he's under crazy pressure. To
Yeah.
be
He's
He's
honest.
not
feel
under
like-
crazy pressure, but I expect him.
Yeah.
I expect him to go back to another final.
Small
sooner or later.
market, you want a chip. I feel like at this point,
Yeah.
man, he could sub in Giannis every game. He got the city,
Yeah,
man.
I don't know. For me,
Yeah, he got the city.
We spoke about me and I spoke about it recently. Talking about is their run closing together as a team. Is it going to stop soon? I feel like right now it's the perfect time for him to get back to the finals, get a second championship, just solidify that spot with Giannis as one of the best coaching player duos in the league. But Monty Williams, Mike Malone, Doc Rivers, those three guys. If Monty can get back to the finals with the team he has right now, I expect him to win it. You got KD, you got Book, you got A, and the guys got CP3. And then Doc Rivers, godly, man. The guys are just living off the Boston ring since 2008. Ain't nothing else there for him. And nothing else there in the playoffs for him. Just that Boston ring and a bunch of second-round losses. So, I expect a lot from Rivers and then Malone. He finally has the healthy team right now with Jokic and Jamal Murray back, MPJ's back. They got a good roster with him. It's finally time for him to win a ring too as well. So those are the coaches I got. Other than that, can't really say anything. Darren Ham, nah. Steve Kerr, he solidified himself. Boston's new coach, it's a new coach for him. You can't put nothing on him. I don't expect nothing from the Hawks, Miami. I don't expect anything else from those type of teams. But those four right there.
Yeah, man. For me, I had a top two ready to go, man. When I thought about this topic, bro. But with the news, Paul George not being able to come back in the series, to come play in this series against the Phoenix Suns, kind of just threw off my entire list. Because I can't lie, I put Tyronn Lue as my number one, and then I put Malone as number two. But now Mike Malone is my number one for coaches that are under the most pressure. to deliver in this postseason. I feel like, I mentioned in our last episode where they don't necessarily give him a lot of credit. It's pretty much always the credit's always given to Nikola Jokic and his success and what he's been able to do for that franchise. But at the end of the day, you have to, as a head coach, you have to deliver. You have to be able to put your team in the best position possible to win. And I feel like, at the end of the day, they have the pieces. They have the pieces to compete and they have the pieces to contend. And I feel like if Mike Malone isn't able to get it done in this postseason with all of his guys back, do the Denver Nuggets look in a different direction and move on from him and try to get a new head coach and a new voice to bring a new voice into the locker room to kind of shake things up and kind of move in a different direction, kind of get these guys ready to go and actually complete the ultimate goal. So I just have Mike Malone on my list. But the reason why I had Tyronn Lue for me is simply because, the Clippers built this team, like Big H mentioned, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and they haven't been able to deliver. Obviously we saw AD and LeBron deliver, and it just hasn't been great for them on the other side, as the neighbors to the Lakers. So I just feel like, Tyronn Lue, although we kind of view him in like this highlight where it's like he's a great head coach, I don't necessarily see it. I don't necessarily see the resume for Tyronn Lue. Like, he got that one ring in 2016 where they came back down from 3-1, where he took over midseason after that David Blatt firing. But it's just like, like after that, he doesn't really have much under his belt. Like, there's a lot of first round, second round, third round exits. He hasn't gone back to the finals after leaving Cleveland. It's just tough to watch. So I feel like, if the Clippers were coming into this postseason healthy with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, I feel like, man, this guy would be under the most pressure to deliver. But with Paul George, not being available for this series, I just feel like, it's another cop out excuse, where one of their duos is injured. Last year it was Kawhi, this year is PG. It's just the same story. It's the same runaround story. So go ahead, and for me, I just got Mike Malone, plain and simple. I think that pretty much wraps up for our list for coaches. Under the most pressure. But let's go ahead and get into this NFL news before we wrap up this entire episode. We have the Baltimore Ravens signing wide receiver Odell Beckham to a 1-year deal that's worth up to $18 million. The details about this deal are, $13.8 million is a signing bonus, 1.1 million in base salary, and then he has $3 million in reachable incentives. And so with that being said, it's kind of the question that I pose to you guys is, how, did obviously one being, did the Ravens overpay? And two, how do we feel about this? How do we feel about the Ravens overpaying for a guy like Odell Beckham?
I feel like this is their like last ditch attempt at trying to like convince Lamar Jackson, like, hey, like, we're attempting to actually just pay for a wide receiver and that we're actually committed to you. But I think Odell came out and said he has no assurances about Lamar Jackson's status. So that's a bit discouraging to think about. I feel like this was their last ditch attempt at like trying to save their relationship with Lamar Jackson and trying to mend between them. But in reality, I feel like this is a move that's too late. If they had done this at the beginning of the season, if they were attempting to get a wide receiver, they would have been done this. But now this is just a Hail Mary to try to get Lamar Jackson to stay. But this doesn't move the needle. I do think they overpaid for a guy who has been out of playing football for a while. There are rumors when he went to work out with Dallas that he didn't look particularly good, and I don't know his status as a footballer now, being out of football for that long. Of course, he's been training and whatnot, but I don't know how he'll look when he comes back. But this is just a Hail Mary. If they really wanted to make moves, they would have gotten someone like DeAndre Hopkins. Somehow they would have gotten him, and that would have been like a statement for them. But to get signed like Odell Beckham, who's no longer like an elite wide receiver, to try to basically, it seems like, save the relationship with Lamar Jackson, just doesn't work in my opinion. This.
Yeah, I mean, for OBJ, I mean, salute to his agent for him to get 13 mil guaranteed, a guaranteed contract with him, like basically the torn ACL, hasn't played in a year. For him to get this money and have a team to bite, that's great for him. But as far as the aspect for the Ravens, they're just basically saying, hey, Lamar, we're trying. And if I'm Lamar, I'm looking at this, and I'm obviously, like, he doesn't have an agent. Him and his mom are looking over at this, like, yeah, forget about it. Like, we're not signing with you guys. This is cute. This is a nice little, hey, I'm reaching over, I'm trying. I'm trying to win her back, but we're not budging. We're not budging. Lamar, go somewhere else. You deserve better. This is a disgusting latch pitch effort to get you back. So if I was him, I wouldn't budge.
I mean, yeah, I feel like they overpaid him a little bit too much. I think what the base contract was, what, 15 million, with like 3 million incentives due throughout the season. 15 mil is a lot for a guy that, been hurt, ACL injury, year in, year out the last 2 years. And for them, I feel like, hey, they're thinking about, hey, if we get this guy here and bring him to Lamar, Lamar's gonna stay, take a pay cut for us. Nah, if I'm Lamar, I want my coins. I want my 200 mil. Y'all did me dirty the last couple of years. Y'all did me dirty this year with the BS that they're pulling, with all the media stuff that they're pulling, with the little franchise tag thing they did, saying, hey, if anybody wants to sign him, here you go, 2 picks and whatever y'all want to do with the money, pay him that guaranteed money. And you've seen 8 teams came out in 15 minutes saying, nope, we don't want that. So that put him at a pedestal where he's stuck at, hey, what the hell am I supposed to do? So all the things, all the grimy things Baltimore is doing to him, and they're trying to fix it up with a guy that's coming off an ACL injury that hasn't played in I don't know how long. It doesn't sit well. It doesn't sit right with me. Lamar is boys with OBJ. He's probably happy about it, but for me, for him, I'm still sitting out. I want my coins. I want my 200 mil. I don't care what type of receiver you're bringing along. The way they've been doing him dirty, he got to get paid regardless of the situation. So, hey, it's good for him if he does come back. They pay him 200 million. He has OBJ right there on the side, but if it's not guaranteed money, mostly guaranteed money, I'm not coming back at all.
I like this contract for the Baltimore Ravens. I feel like, although Odell Beckham Jr. isn't the wide receiver that you were probably hoping for, but at the end of the day, it's like you're not necessarily bringing OBJ into the fold on a long-term deal. This is a 1-year deal, $15 million worth up to 18 million with incentives. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, he's not on the roster next year. So it's just like, it's a last ditch effort to bring back a guy like Lamar Jackson onto this team. And I feel like even if it doesn't go in their favor, this is something that they can get out of extremely easily. Like Odell Beckham Jr. doesn't have to be he doesn't have to be a Baltimore Raven next year after this upcoming season. Like it's just one and done. It's Odell wanted to play somewhere where he can flourish and stuff like that. And he gave the Jets an opportunity to match. He gave the Jets an opportunity to match this deal, and the Jets were like, nope, we're not matching it. And I respect the Jets for that, simply because they have the playmakers. What does Odell Beckham Jr. look like on the New York Jets? With Aaron Rodgers and all those weapons that they got. Like, is he going to be the wide receiver one? Is he going to be the wide receiver two to Garrett Wilson? Like is Odell willing to take on that role as a potential wide receiver to Garrett Wilson? So it's just like, Odell just took the best situation for him, where the situation is pretty simple. We all know the wide receiver room in Baltimore is terrible. Rashad Bateman's leading the way over there, and he's a young stud that got injured last year who'll be coming back this year. Then Odell Beckham Jr., he slots in really well. So I think this is a great deal for the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, you can get out of this deal really quickly after this upcoming season. And for Odell Beckham Jr., it's a good 1-year prove it deal to the rest of the league, where I'm still Odell Beckham Jr. I can dominate this league just like I did when I first got into it. So for Lamar Jackson, you're looking at it like, well, if I decide to come back to the Baltimore Ravens, I do got some nice weapons. I have Odell Beckham Jr. on one side. I have Rashad Bateman on the other. I have my old reliable Mark Andrews as my tight end. And then, of course, we all know how elite that running game is and how elite that running game has always been. So it's just a last ditch effort. But overall, I'm a big fan of this move. Honestly, I feel like this can honestly work in the Baltimore Ravens' favor if all things work out with Lamar Jackson. But with that being said, man, it's been a long night. That pretty much wraps up our episode for today. Not temperature check, but any final words before we get out of here, man?
I'm ready for
Oh,
play, man.
I don't want to watch tomorrow, bro. Basketball.
The basketball, man. Big games tomorrow. The Knicks and Cavs and Warriors and Kings. I'm excited for those 2 games. I do not care about the Nets Sixers series. I don't care about the Boston Hawks game, but those last 2 games is going to be nice.
Yeah, man. Playoff basketball. This is where the truth comes and the truth lies. So I'm excited to see who's telling the truth and who's lying. So I'm excited to see some hoops.
Hey man, playoff basketball, man. It's exciting. It's an exciting time of the year, man. This is the time of the year where I look forward to the most. High stake basketball being played. You love to see it, but Before we get out of here, man, I do want to thank you, Bandit, for hopping on this episode with us today, man. Of course, it's always laughs and always love when you hop on here, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me. It's always a pleasure. Hey, the draft one, I might have to pop my head. I can't lie.
NFL draft, you gotta hop back on, man. I feel like this NFL draft is gonna be beautiful. It's gonna be fantastic.
Yeah,
you
I'm
know,
about
you
to
got
save
the
a
flip
few
pick.
pointers. Live
Yeah, I got
reaction.
the-
Like,
You know,
Hey, man, the thing
might
is,
do a
man,
live reaction, man. Who knows?
I'm hoping we have a lot more of these encounters, man. I think like you made your predictions for the first round. I'm thinking we bring you back for the recap of the first round, maybe a potential second round prediction. You know, my people
We
will
got
get
a
in
lot-
contact with your people, man. But I feel
oh,
like you
no
got a lot to
worries. Yeah.
say.
Yeah, bring in the paperwork. I feel like that's a good idea.
Anyways, man, I appreciate you for hopping on with us today, man.
Yeah,
But with that
likewise.
being said,
Good to see the fellas.
you know, we'll go ahead and close things out here, man. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I really appreciate your love and support. We'd greatly appreciate it if you like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at New Media Podcast. And for those of you that are watching us on YouTube, all of our social media handles will be at the end of this video. And if you're listening to us on Apple and Spotify, if you go to our Instagram page at New Media Podcast, you'll be able to navigate yourself to all of our social media handles there. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in. Bandit, thank you so much for showing up today. We appreciate you. And we'll see you guys in
Shout
the
out my
next
guy
one.
Bandit, man.
Yeah, see you
My
guys.
guy.
Yep.
Peace.
Record a new hit, then we making us a film. Wouldn't sign a deal if I got a couple mil. Been in the lab, now they throwing out deals. Being out late, now that's overkill.